Welcome to another episode. It's been a minute.
It's been a long
It's
while.
there is a ton to go through, but welcome to Puck Yourself.
It's been a long while.
Um, we did our 2025 predictions last episode, but I don't think we've done much since.
We have not done anything since.
There's a lot of news. There's a lot of overall.
This is our first episode of the new year.
Is it really?
Yeah.
This previous one was published day before.
It was
This one
the
we
day
recorded?
before New Year's Eve, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Our New Year is fun.
Yeah.
I think I slept the entirety of the next day.
Yeah, that's pretty
That's
typical for you on
that's
the weekend.
That's standard.
Yeah.
That's standard.
Yeah.
What do you want to start with? There's so many different angles to go with. We were talking a lot yesterday, and so I'm curious where you want to start.
I'd just go through some games.
Okay. Leafers.
There was a lot of the same teams over the past 2 weeks. It was a Monday, and so we're coming up on 2 weeks tomorrow since we last recorded. Jack was a little sick this week, so we had to postpone.
I had the sniffles.
Yeah.
We were gonna record. Was that on Wednesday?
Tuesday. Yeah.
And I was not feeling good. And even the next day, I was a little bit sick in the evening. But Tylenol, cold and flu. Tylenol, you want to sponsor? Because I love your stuff, okay? I'm feeling down. Give me that sweet nighttime, daytime Sudafed. Get you through a work day.
Yeah, I mean, quick little tire pump for the drug company, but I'm not sure that's what we should be endorsing here.
So games. So which one?
So New Year's Eve. We had an afternoon game New Year's Eve.
Right.
Against the Islanders. It was the start of a little run. We played the Islanders the Tuesday, so New Year's Eve, and then our first game of the new year was the Thursday in New York. So we had a home and home with the New York Islanders, which we won both.
Second game was a little bit more competitive.
Yeah, they were both tight. It was 3-1, 2-1, and the 3-1 had an empty netter, so it wasn't too. Some depth guys getting in on the action a little bit. McMahon had 2 in New York.
Yeah.
On Long Island.
And then Johnny T.
And then Tavares had an empty netter.
Sweet Islanders fans raging still.
Yeah.
8 years later.
I still can't believe they still boo.
Grow up.
Yeah.
It's Long Island, though. It's kind of trash.
Yeah, but so with the team you have now, you think if Tavares still played for your team, you probably wouldn't have Horvat.
No.
If Tavares was still there.
And
honestly, it doesn't really change anything.
And you wouldn't be getting the same production out of John today that you would have.
Exactly.
You transport John to the Islanders today, he's not doing what he's doing in Toronto.
No, exactly. And even the past couple of years with Tavares is kind of started to regress a little bit before this year.
It's like breaking up with a high school love, okay? You shared some great memories, maybe a couple firsts, but end of the day, it's both of you need to move on eventually, and you'll both be better for it.
How can you be mad at a guy for joining his childhood team?
Oh no. You want to live out a memory that
team's been shit for how long?
Every player wants to do growing up for your childhood and play for the team that you watched? Oh no.
Fuck off. Anyway, a couple tight games. Wall, I believe, played both games. And he looked good in both games. He solid in both games.
Yeah. I mean, not that the Islanders do have some talent. It's not like they have a crazy they're not great on scoring, but Wall look great. Fluid, smooth.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I believe that was one. Was that which game? I believe that was one of the games where Tanev took a shot in the face. I believe it was one of those 2 games.
I think it was the second one.
I think it was the second one. I don't think it was the first one, if I remember correctly.
So shout out Greenhouse Juices too. Sorry, real quick, because they are phenomenal.
It's holy fuck.
Sorry. Yeah, that's scary stuff.
Let's see what his stats were that game, because he left pretty early. No, he had 19 minutes that night.
There's no way he played the next game, though. I thought it was the second game.
Maybe it was Boston. No, he played after that, too. I don't know. Anyway, he took a shot off the face in one game.
Tanev's
and just an absolute warrior. He comes back and plays the rest of the way.
Yeah.
So what we talked about the Tavares. Tavares scored an empty netter in the first game. How about Patty Waugh pulling the goalie
Okay, I
with a
want to get
face-off
into
in his
this
own zone?
because you made a compelling argument last night. Because
Should we wait till we're done with the Leafs talk?
okay,
This
okay,
is Islanders
we'll come
talk.
back. We'll
We'll
circle
come
back.
back.
Corporate speak. We'll circle back.
Yeah, we'll come back to it. Uh, because it's more of a general topic. We're sticking with the Leafs right now. So yeah, so the Islanders games, they were tight. They're hard to play against,
They're no walk
but
in the park,
should
and
be wins.
you're if you can
Two
put
wins.
goals in on Sorokin, like
Yeah.
that's not an easy task.
Um, okay. So after that, they hosted Boston on the Saturday night, and that was an
Little,
absolute barn burner.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was a little bit closer than I had anticipated.
Yeah.
Um,
The Leafs kind of came out hot, but Boston wouldn't go away.
yeah,
They scored. The Leafs were up two, and then Boston scored like 10 seconds after to make it 2-1.
yeah,
And then they scored at the end of the second, so 2-2 into the third. That was the Matthew Nyes masterclass Saturday night.
4 goals,
Patrick.
3 goals, and almost had the empty netter.
He had 3 goals and 2 assists. He had
But Mitchell made the wise decision.
we had 2 empty netters. He had both the assists on both empty netters.
Breakout kind of
5-point
game
night.
for him.
Yeah,
Great
5-point
stuff to
night.
see.
Yeah. And yeah, he had, like you said, Marner had kind of had the chance to get it to him for a fourth, but the defenseman was kind of on him. So it was probably the right wise choice to shoot the puck, which is a first because usually Marner tries to force the pass.
Who was in net that game? Was that Hildeby?
No, well played.
Well played on that.
No, there's no back to backs there.
Okay.
Yeah, typical like Swayman didn't look terrific.
I thought Swayman was going to have a real good kind of second half of the season, but
It's been better than what it was.
watching him a couple games in a row now,
Yeah,
he's not.
it's still not what he was the last
No.
season.
No.
Yeah, Post they kind of dragged him back into the game a little bit, which he kind of has to do now because he's not going to get much else help offensively. So, but yeah, it was a fairly solid night, bar that second period, which is usually our strongest period. We kind of gave the game away a little bit, but they hung in it, and it's always good to beat Boston.
Yeah.
Just a bitch to play against, but they had the back to back, and I believe Hildeby played the Philly game on the Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, right here. So yeah, so they played the Saturday and won 6-4, and then they played Philly on Sunday.
And this was a back-to-back Philly into Philly again.
Yeah, and they played Philly twice. They played Philly on the Tuesday.
Got the dubs both games.
Yeah, so the Sunday game, I didn't see much. I'm sure you probably watched the whole thing. I watched a little bit.
Was it the first one? Yeah, because this is when McCabe got hurt. It was this one because then that's when Domi took a swing at Hathaway.
Was
the
it
game
that
next.
Game? I thought it was in Philly that happened.
No, because then they sent out Revo game
in the second game. Yeah, you're right. It was the Sunday. Yeah, you're right.
Unfortunately,
texted me on Sunday while I was watching the Lions game. Yeah,
it was pretty it's tough to see. Like he was out of it at first.
Yeah,
he skated out under his own weight. It's just like you that little rope-a-dope punch drunk like when they get hit and they're just getting up and you can see it in their eyes. They're like,
I gotta get up, but it's like, okay, take a second here.
Yeah, brain and body aren't connected at that point. That's scary.
But he got up on his own. He got up not on his own, but he got up and skated off.
He hasn't returned since, so I'm thinking like maybe things were a little bit worse than people were hoping.
Well, he had the one previously.
Concussion.
Wasn't it the shot to the face? I don't know if it was concussion, but he got that shot to the face, and he was out.
Did it hit the helmet? It hit the helmet.
I think it hit him in the ear. Like it hit the side. Yeah.
So that's two kind of head incidents.
Not sure if that was concussion, but I would imagine it was.
It can't help.
Yeah. And then the second one, the guy Hathaway, who's not a small guy, lands on him after the fight.
Yeah, it wasn't any of the punches. It was it was head hitting the ice and then Hathaway falling onto him.
Probably not the guy McCabe should be fighting. I know he's trying to stick up for his teammates. Philly are probably one of the few teams in the league the Leafs want Reeves in the lineup against.
Yeah.
Because there is a guy on the other end who maybe possibly would fight him.
Yeah. But Leafs ended up getting the
They
W.
they won in overtime. Riley got the winner in overtime.
Great, like great showing. Like
Yeah,
to finish the game like that.
yeah, Riley probably the best I've seen. That overtime, Riley was all over the place, and the best I've seen him play in a
Um,
while
yeah,
because it hasn't been great since that game, to be honest.
no, it was kind of like a
Yeah. So they won in OT, and then they went to Philly and won by the same scoreline in regulation.
um, all
Knies got the winner
yeah, and that's when Domi
in
did the
Philly.
stupid.
That was the Sunday game.
Was that the Sunday
The
one?
Sunday game was after that happened, and
Like
Domi took this stupid penalty in the
stupid
third.
elbow that did
Yeah,
nothing. You're just hurting your team.
yeah,
Great job, Domi.
yeah. Why don't you just hit him?
Because he can't. Because he's a little chicken
This
shit.
is what I mean. This is what I'm talking about. Fake tough guy shit. Get that out of here.
Um, do you want to talk about the Lofton rumors while we're on Philly, or you want to save that?
I think we save that.
Um, okay, so then we go back to Philly.
Back to Philly. Knies gets the winner.
Saw a clip of Philly fans after the Leafs win this one trying to fight. This guy tried to 1-2 two
Yeah,
guys.
yeah.
Did
You
you
sent
see
that.
this?
Yeah, you sent it to me. Yeah, yeah,
Unbelievable
yeah.
behavior, Philly. Way to keep it classy, you trash city.
Pretty typical.
Um,
Yeah, Konechny kind of stole the show for them that night. He got two.
yeah, he
Yeah, but outside of that,
Konechny's points this year are just unbelievable.
Konechny is a gamer. That's a guy I
Making
want on my team a million times over.
making it work despite how terrible
Yeah,
everything is around him.
he's just a bitch to play against.
Goaltending sucks out of Philly right now. There's
Yeah, it's
no
brutal. They
support.
need a goalie.
Um,
I think they've made it pretty well known that they aren't really looking to compete, even though they're kind of in the mix for the last playoff spot. I think that's just kind of like the torts and like their culture is like hardworking culture, so they're
because
hard
who
to play
wants to
against.
roll over and die?
Yeah, exactly. Like as a head coach, you can't tell your team, all right, we want to suck for a better draft pick.
Yeah,
You can't tell your guys that.
no. Get your young guys experience.
Yeah,
Play around with systems. You've got a culture that literally that's fantastic that you've got a culture that doesn't
yeah,
want to lose.
exactly.
Um,
It's tough. The personnel's not really there.
the Leafers get the job done.
Yeah. And then since then, it hasn't looked great.
Absolutely ruled by
That
the
was the
Hurricanes.
fifth win in a row. I believe Wall played that game, correct? Yeah.
Yep.
And Wall looked good in the stretch. Carolina on Thursday night was a tough one.
That was bad to
It
watch.
didn't look good.
I know they got some goals, but it was all four lines on Carolina know how to play the game.
Yeah, I am really surprised that Carolina has not had playoff success. I know they don't have like a star player, but just the way they play. That doesn't necessarily mean not surprised that they haven't won the cup, but I'm surprised they haven't at least made the conference final because they play such a playoff style game for the whole season. You would think it would translate into the playoffs very well.
I literally just think it boils down
Just
to
goal scoring, really.
and it doesn't show in this
Yeah,
game because they scored
yeah,
6, but it is. They don't
yeah.
have reliable offense that is.
But they're just so hard to play against, and they're constantly on you
Yeah,
all game long. You never have time on the puck.
yeah.
Jordan Stahl got a hat trick that night.
Out of nowhere,
Yeah,
Mr.
yeah.
Stahl.
Comes back, and I believe is getting his number retired.
Is he really?
I don't know when it is. I don't know. Maybe it already happened. I'm not sure.
I even want to say he had more points than that. I think he had no. It was, okay, I thought he had
Yeah,
an
no,
assist in
that's
there
it.
as well.
Yeah. When you look at Jarvis play, like I think you can completely justify taking him on Team Canada at this point because he puts up a solid amount of points and he's just buzzing all over the ice.
Yeah,
And Natchez has slowed down quite a bit. He had a hard start. He's kind of slowed down a bit.
yeah. Martin Hook. I don't know if he assisted all of Stahl's goals, but he had 3 assists that night.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I think he did. Yeah, he did. This Robinson guy,
He looked good.
he looks good.
He was the guy who
a
had that.
solid year. He's just like again, just buzzing around. He's not going to put up tons of points, but
I watched him play and then said, "Is this guy available?"
this he puts up. He doesn't put up crazy numbers, but just a guy you want on your team, buzzes around. We love him in a depth role.
Yeah.
I believe he's playing with the second line for them right now. But yeah, overall, like we weren't completely out of the game. Like shots were pretty even.
Yeah.
Not Wall's best night. I wouldn't necessarily say the game was his fault.
No, this is the one where it was like there was There's
there's
one
one
real
goal.
notable that's like
Yeah, there's one
that.
goal which you're gonna get every now and again. Like the best of the best. Like Vasilevsky makes mistakes.
Sure.
Right? Everyone makes mistakes at some point.
Yeah.
Not his best night, but I wouldn't say it's on him. The
Agreed.
team didn't play particularly well in front of him.
And then
And then last night in Vancouver was even worse because at least in Carolina there was a little bit of offensive promise, a little bit. Last night just didn't look good,
I genuinely thought we were gonna roll Vancouver.
and neither team had a lot of shots. It was a pretty defensive game.
It was like 5 minutes left in the third, and neither team had hit 20
20
shots.
shots, yeah.
Which is very unusual.
Yeah. So Hildeby played. I think they just. I know it wasn't a back-to-back, but Wall's getting a lot of minutes with Stolarz out, and
What
they really don't trust Hildeby or Murray.
It was like 40
fully.
seconds into the game, and we were down 1-0. That's
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah.
It's tough to hit reset on that.
And Lankinen has just looked good for Vancouver, and we
Yeah.
didn't really get any surefire opportunities to test them that well.
They were defensively way more
solid.
sound than I was.
I expected them to be because of what's going on there,
Mm.
which we'll get into in a bit.
Okay.
But they looked a lot. Vancouver looked the best I've seen them play because I watched them play a couple times this week.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, I watched Monday night, Wednesday night. They played Washington and lost in overtime on Wednesday night.
Cause shout out to Rob Shaw Sr., who
Yeah, my
is
dad
a Canucks
is a Vancouver fan, and then briefly watched a little bit of the game against Carolina on Friday night. While the college football semifinal was at halftime. And they didn't look good in either, especially the Carolina one. They were in the game against Washington, but Washington kind of ran the play. But they looked really good against us. And
Quinn Hughes.
we talked about when they announced the Four Nations rosters, we kind of said, like, every team except for Canada has, like, one top tier guy and no more.
Mm-hmm.
I think the U.S. has two. I think I'm putting Quinn Hughes in that top tier now.
It seems pretty strong argument that you can put him in there.
Yeah,
the way he skates, his offensive prowess, like I love that.
Every time he's on the ice,
he's a threat.
Completely dominates the play.
Yep.
And they showed the stat last night. He is tied for second in the NHL for average offensive zone possession as a defenseman.
For a defenseman to be able to dictate play like he does.
Like, Makar's not there. The only player that has more than him is McDavid, and he's tied with McKinnon.
So two of your top offensive players in the league, forwards, and then Quinn Hughes.
Yeah.
That's
like Draisaitl. He has more than Draisaitl. He has more than like Matthews, Marner, Nylander. He has more than tons of guys around the league that you would think.
Yeah.
Even Makar would probably be. You would probably think he would have more than Hughes.
Yeah.
Just based on Colorado is probably a more possession-minded team than Vancouver.
Yeah.
But yeah, I put him just his. He won the Norris last year, and if you look at his underlying numbers this year, they're even better. Actually, they're a lot better this year.
Even the lines he takes to enter the zone are just like, I don't know. Yeah. It's he controls. He doesn't go. He doesn't mind going to the other side of the ice.
He's like a one-man breakout. And if he has possession in the offensive end, you're not getting.
When your defenseman can take the puck in and allow your offensive guys to get in position, like what an advantage, because you've got two guys chasing him. They don't need to really kind of cover two guys on the blue line because he has such control, and it's crazy to see him play.
Yeah, he is. So I would say the U.S. is two guys in the top tier, and his brother isn't far behind.
Do you think he plays with Matthews? Like, what's that chemistry going to be? Yeah.
My prediction was that it's Matthews, Hughes, and Matt Tkachuk. I think that is probably the most well-balanced line I can think of in the entire tournament, maybe across the whole NHL.
Yeah.
Think about it. Hughes is like top tier playmaker, one of the top tier playmakers throughout the league.
Yeah.
Matthews is the premier goal scorer in the league.
Sniper.
And Tkachuk's the premier power forward in the league.
Gets the job done. Like, goes gritty guy, doesn't mind laying the body around.
And he puts points up.
Yeah.
So.
And then deep pairing, who'd you have with
Quinn?
Well,
that's just depending on who's on the ice. But with Quinn, I believe I had McAvoy because I think it kind of pans out where you
Yeah.
have Hughes and Fox are your offensive D-men, and Hughes is a lefty and Fox is a righty, and then you have McAvoy and Slavin as your more shutdown guys, and McAvoy's a righty and Slavin's a lefty.
So it works out
So it just
naturally.
kind of like
Okay.
naturally you would put Hughes
Have
with
some
McAvoy
defensive
and Slavin with
coverage.
Fox.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then that gives ease of mind to Quinn
yeah,
to like do
yeah,
his game.
and play, just
Yeah.
play. Yeah, and I think it takes pressure off McAvoy too because I feel like McAvoy is a solid two-way defenseman, but I think the Bruins put a lot of pressure on him to produce offensively from the back end
Yeah.
because they don't really have anyone else from the back end.
No.
And I think he's solid production wise, but I don't think he's an outright offensive D man.
Yeah.
I think he's two way.
Yeah.
So it kind of let Quinn take care of that side, and you do your job. Take care of defensive side, right?
It was tough to watch last night.
Anyway, yeah, get away from that. Stick with the Leafs here. Um, I thought Pedersen had the best game I've seen him play in a while too. I know that's not the Leafs, but yeah, it didn't look good last night. They put the Domi, Roberts, and McMahon line back together, and it was not good.
No, I think you probably need. It's time to blow it up.
It was
It
not
hasn't
good.
worked.
Yeah,
It's interesting because like there was reports of the previous. I think it was the previous day's skate where Chief was frustrated with my practice.
yeah,
The effort wasn't there. They weren't moving. They weren't making like.
and that played out in the game.
Yeah,
That's exactly what played out.
yeah. Um, I think right before we started, um, do we just call it Donnie? Donnie is our girlfriend's dad.
Yeah,
Donnie was saying, Steven Lorentz,
yeah,
200 hits, 0 pounding
yeah.
minutes. He's talented. Like he is talented. Every once in a
He
while,
plays his role,
you
and I don't think he's been scratched once.
work his way up to the third line.
I
You
think he
brought it
should be on the
up.
third line.
I think you give him a shot.
I think he
Who
should be
drops
on
that?
the
So
third line.
you're dropping Domi down to fourth line because I don't think he works on fourth line, and we do have to deal with Domi. It's
Realistically, I'm not gonna. If it was up to me, he wouldn't be in the lineup. But
I know.
realistically, he's going to be in the lineup.
So you put him on wing
So I would say
because I don't like him as a
Matthews, Nyes, and Marner. Tavares, Nylander. I would put McMahon on the second line on left wing.
Pacioretty drops.
The third line, you're probably going to have to deal with Domi at center because Holmberg hasn't worked either. And just maybe a little more Domi, a little more offensive upside if he is playing well. If Domi moves his feet, he's not amazing, but at least if he's moving his feet, he has some speed when he's moving his feet. It's just a lot of times you see him flat-footed, he's not moving his feet.
Well, I think he's got he. I don't know. I think his confidence is shot,
Yeah,
and frankly, it should be.
yeah,
Mine would be too.
yeah,
Not that I've ever, played anywhere near. But it's like you haven't had a good season. You really were under the
yeah,
microscope last season because you weren't great. You re-signed. You were the one between you and Bert, and you haven't shown
yeah,
why we paid you,
yeah.
why you stuck around, why you got the paycheck you did.
I just have a hard time. What do you what do you do? Because
It just doesn't
right
feel good.
now, no matter what the mixture is for the third line, obviously they had when Robertson, Domi, and McMahon had that run, they played really well. But long term, we talked about it. It wasn't never going to be the solution.
Does he have a no move, Domi?
Domi, I don't think so.
Uh,
I don't think so.
It would surprise me if he did, and so then it becomes this
If
is
he
a guy you trade.
if he does, it's partial,
This is a
not
guy.
like full no move.
You've got the rumors around Lofton. I think that makes sense to bring up now because it's like lineup changes. If you're going to change out someone you're looking to
Yeah,
acquire, it is a guy
yeah.
who, I think he would be okay in Philly.
I don't. You don't need to convince me of that. You have to
Um,
convince somebody else's GM of
yeah,
that.
and maybe it means biting. I mean, again, not to jump too all over the place.
Yeah,
They announced the cap increase.
yeah.
Okay, so maybe retain a mil of his salary.
That's tough because our situation, right? We're not in a situation where we're not Anaheim. We can't
Yeah,
just bite salary
yeah.
here, there, and everywhere. We're kind of like this is our window to win. It's kind of
Which
like
is why it's okay. Do you
yeah,
bite it just a little bit to get something that actually improves your team,
yeah. I don't
even
know.
marginally?
Yeah, I don't know. I would love to just get them out,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's gonna happen. realistically, I would want Lawrence to play in the third line. But when I watch Cam Fedor and Lawrence in the fourth line, I love that line. That's a terrific fourth line.
Get the puck in,
Yeah.
get ozone
I'm
control,
not saying they're gonna go
get the
score
guns out.
goals, but
No, because that's not their job.
they're hard on the forecheck, and most of the time when they've been together, the play seems to stay in the other team's end.
And that's
That's
the
what
point.
you're asking for from your fourth line.
Yeah. It's go
Yeah.
get the puck out of
Yeah.
our zone, get some control in the ozone, get control, and then you have your guns come out.
So your third line is what? Domi and two out
Pacioretty.
of Pacioretty, Holmberg, and Robertson. You have to pick two of those three guys. Basically, who's playing well at the moment?
Yeah. And right now that would be Robertson. Robertson's playing okay.
I would put,
He's getting some decent
yeah,
looks. He's working.
yeah. Maybe consider move Lorenz up to the fourth line or third line and put Holmberg on the fourth line.
I like that more.
But that's not a lot of size. And Camp and Dewar aren't big guys. Holmberg's not a big guy. That's no size.
And that's one of Steven's like
Yeah.
assets is
Yeah.
he's like 6'3", can skate, and he gets physical. And
So
every once in a while he's gonna get a great look.
and the rumors out there is that Tree Living doesn't want to bring a rental in. He wants to bring a guy in with term, which is going to be extremely difficult to do. You might have to bite the bullet on a prospect that you like in order to get that guy in. If
Yeah.
you want a center with term, you don't want a rental.
You know what I regret? Not shouting at Tree when we stayed late because we were gonna take a little bit to get out of the stadium.
Yeah, we
saw
saw him
him
walk
leaving,
by.
and I wanted to shout
Yeah.
Tree so bad, and
Yeah.
I didn't, and I think that's one of my greatest
Greatest
losses.
regrets in
Yeah,
your life.
yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, it didn't look great against Vancouver on Saturday. So it was a nice 5-game win streak, and then we're on a 2-game here, and it's not going to get any easier. We got Dallas on Tuesday, and I believe we have New Jersey on Thursday. And we go to Montreal on Saturday, and usually that would be a cakewalk, but the way Montreal's playing right now, it's not. So
Montreal's picked it up.
yeah,
I know they lost last night, but it was in a shootout.
yeah, so it's not an easy week.
Yeah,
and we need to play a lot better than we did the last 2 nights. Play like we did
way
the previous 5
better.
games.
Yeah.
Next
up,
outside of the games, we talked about McCabe. Had that scary injury on the Hathaway fight, and then Domi went after Hathaway. Domi got fined 5,000 for that hit on Hathaway
because it was a blatant attempt to injure a guy.
It was pretty like blatant. So you just kind of touch on that. We touched on Tanev.
Do you have
the shot in the face a little bit?
Do you have any issue with because the narrative was like, well, why didn't Revo go after Hathaway?
Well, it's one of my topics, so we can get into it.
Okay.
We get into Reeves' role here. When we signed Reeves to this deal, I didn't hate signing him. I think the money was too much. I don't think you should be signing a guy like that for more than $1 million.
Yeah. And what's he at?
Slightly over $1 million per year for 3 years. So I believe he's got 1 year left after this year.
Okay.
So the cap hit is a little higher than what you want it to be for somebody who brings what he brings. Basically, outside of physicality, he's a liability.
Correct. He's never scoring a goal. He's not sound player defensively.
He's a liability. It's a lot better than what it was last year.
Correct.
It is better than what it was last year. I think that's more so maybe the fourth line is better, so he's kind of blanketed a little bit better.
Yeah.
With Lorentz and Dewar and Camp all kind of playing solid. Reeves, if we went back 10 years, I would love having Reeves in the lineup.
Yeah. 10 years is a good.
The 10 years are further back. The issue is there are no more heavyweights like him.
No. You think Hathaway was going to fight Reeves?
Hathaway would be one of the closest guys in the league to his weight class. To his he's the heavyweight champion.
And okay, 2 senses looking at the hit or how the whole thing with Hathaway and McCabe started, didn't really do anything wrong. It wasn't a dirty hit
No,
by
no,
McCabe. It
he
wasn't
didn't.
a dirty hit by
Yeah,
Hathaway. There,
McCabe is the one who initiated it.
there was. I think it was like McCabe was standing over him. Whatever,
Yeah,
whether they're holding on to each other or not. Hathaway dropped the gloves first.
yeah,
Whatever. You were standing over him.
yeah,
This is what was going to happen. He
yeah,
was. That's the type of player he is. And it went unfortunate. Don't get me wrong. There was nothing to answer for. It
yeah.
wasn't he cross-checked McCabe in the back
No,
and boarded the
no,
guy face
no.
first. That's not what happened.
And that's not to say I don't think like I think Reeves probably went out looking to fight him. It just never really materialized.
Yep. There was like the one bump in,
Yeah,
and that was it.
fighting has become a little bit more prominent. It kind of went completely away.
It went,
It's
yeah,
a little mini comeback. It's never going to be what it was.
because you still need the element of self-policing.
Yeah, the fighting off the face off is done.
Correct.
Like just we're gonna drop the gloves. It's more of a you did this to my guy, so you gotta pay.
Time to answer.
Yeah, that's what fighting is now. The issue is that there are no more guys like Reeves.
No.
So nobody wants to fight Reeves because they don't want to get their face punched in.
Reeves will knock you out by punching your helmet.
Basically, you can only put Reeves in when you put in New York Rangers and Matt Rempe's in the lineup,
And
or when you
that's going to
play,
be their whole game.
or when you play Chicago and Pat Maroon's in the lineup.
I know a lot of guys love Pat Maroon for another very famous podcast. Okay. I think he's an absolute moron. Not gonna lie.
What do you mean by moron?
Some of the things he says are just flat out, I don't know, ridiculous.
I think he plays his role to perfection.
I get it. I still don't have to like the guy
You
though.
don't have to like him. I think I'd love. I would 1,000% take Maroon on the Leafs over Reeves.
Yeah, I think yeah, unquestionably.
Like you watch Maroon. Maroon
Maroon does other things.
Maroon does other things, and he's not a complete like he's not. I'm not gonna say he's sound defensively, but he's not a complete liability like Reeves is.
Yeah, he can still be in the
Yeah,
lineup.
like I know it's apples to oranges here. Chicago is a lot weaker team than Toronto, but based on what I saw when I went to the game in Chicago, we watched the Winter Classic a little bit. I've seen Chicago games here and there throughout the year. Maroon probably usually starts on a third or fourth line, but he kind of gets put into situations where they'll put him on with Bedard,
Mhm.
kind of like a policing thing. Maybe like he's got some fight experience. Let's put him with Bedard.
Because to
Maroon has consistently been a third, fourth line guy on Cup champions.
yeah,
St. Louis, Tampa.
Tampa. I get it. Okay, and we're not here to criticize Pat Maroon intensely. That wasn't
Yeah,
the point. But it's like the point of the point of fighting. Why it's allowed in hockey is it's a self
yeah,
policing tool. You can't have some absolute goon who's doing face washing guys every single time because there has to be some sort of mutually
yeah,
assured
yeah.
destruction.
And the issue we have is that, like we said, Reeves is that, but nobody will fight him anymore.
No, why would you? I'm not.
Exactly. They're just not that heavyweight guy anymore. So there really isn't a point of having him in the lineup.
Yeah,
If we're being completely honest, there isn't a point of having him in the lineup. And you've seen that over the past how many weeks he's barely played. They shoot him in against Philly. He played a little bit when we had the injury crisis there, where it was kind of like a bunch of guys like Dewar and Grabenkin and Nylander. Alex Nylander came up, and it was kind of like Reeves. It's kind of got to play because we need to fill in the numbers, and we don't have to pick a guy out from the AHL to do it.
yeah.
But since all those we kind of got healthy again up front, you don't see him in the lineup, and I don't think that's going to change. I don't think you're going to be able to find a suitor.
No.
So it's kind of just you got to ride out the wave, and
How long does he have
he's got
left?
a little more year
A
after
year.
this year. So you just kind of ride out the wave. It's going to be a healthy scratch most nights. Maybe when you play Boston in the playoffs or something, he plays a game or two,
If needed.
and like very little minutes.
It's an if needed.
Yeah, that's
Because
kind of
you are putting a little bit of a stranglehold on
yeah,
your fourth line if he's in the lineup. It means you can't utilize some of those great assets we just talked about
yeah.
to their full capabilities and how they should be played.
And just now that all those like Dewar was not healthy at the beginning of the year, I don't think anyone expected Lawrence to be as good as he has been. if we're being honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Considering he was such a
Yeah.
fringe guy, and he was just on a tryout, right?
I don't think it was a tryout, but like less than a mil.
There wasn't
He was a
guaranteed he was going to
scratch. He
be.
scratched most of the time for Florida,
Yeah,
so at least half the time for Florida.
he's
So it was like,
working his way into the
yeah,
lineup, and he's done really well.
yeah. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with Reeves. I don't hate the guy. It's not really his fault.
Entertaining. I love him
I would
personally.
love to see. I like him as a guy. He's just a liability on the ice a little bit now at this point.
Yeah.
And there's nobody out there that will go him for Berube to justify having him in a lineup every single night.
Yeah.
It's gonna be kind of like that. You play Philly, this happened. All right, we're gonna respond. We're gonna put Reeves in the lineup. Maybe against the Rangers because they're so bad anyway. So Rempe's there. Let's go fight him. Right? Yeah. Yeah. I don't really know what else to say on that.
That's kind of it.
Yeah.
I think that's most of it.
Um, Before we get into more discussions, maybe just some cleanup here. Uh, Probably like a month ago, around Dakota Mermis, who's an AHL defenseman, got claimed off of waivers
Yeah.
by Utah. Well, Utah put him on waivers, and we claimed him back, and he immediately went to the Marlies. Just a little bit of maintenance there, bring him back. Obviously, they probably didn't want to put him on waivers, but they were kind of handcuffed a little bit, so they brought him back. And then we also extended defenseman Philip Myers, who I've actually been really impressed with lately.
He had a good look last
He's been
night with a
playing a lot
shot.
with Riley.
Yeah.
It's a 2-year deal with a 850,000 AAV.
Fantastic.
Good value.
Yeah. Really good value.
And at this point in the season, when McCabe comes back, I keep Myers in the lineup over Timmins.
I would agree. I think he's proved it.
Yeah.
Timmins, I
Timmins
think
had a good start, but he's struggled.
he's just not there.
He struggled recently.
Yeah.
He didn't look great last night. Didn't look great
And I
Thursday
think
night.
I think it's starting to bleed into more than recently.
Yeah. It's been like a month now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, that stretch before McCabe got hurt, he wasn't playing.
No.
So yeah, so just a little bit of cleanup there. Okay, I had two more things. So Matthews obviously was out for a bit. He has returned. He's looked really good since his return, and the second time he looked really good when he came back last time.
And just really showcasing the two-way play.
Two-way play. His first game back, I couldn't believe how much he was hitting.
Yeah.
He was buzzing around, using his body, and we love to see it. We want to see that.
Upper body injury not bothering him that much, apparently.
It didn't seem to bother him at all.
No.
So a lot of rumors out there. Should the Leafs be careful with him?
Maybe.
Because it's kind of a recurring thing. It doesn't seem like it's going to go away. Matthews has said he's not sure if it's going to go away.
People are talking about, okay, well, is he going to play in the Four Nations Cup? And I think it's unequivocally, absolutely he will.
Yeah, as long as he doesn't aggravate the injury again.
Yeah.
Because I don't think the Leafs have any say over whether he can play or not. I think it's
no. It would have to, it would have to be his choice.
Matthews say, I want to be fresh for the Leafs,
and you're gonna go.
And it's your first opportunity to play best on best.
You're gonna convince Austin Matthews, hey, maybe take the decision, maybe take it easy. No, he's a gamer.
It's not gonna happen. Would I prefer that?
As a Leafs fan?
Selfish reasons, yeah, you want to keep him fresh, and we don't want the U.S. to win. Yeah, I would prefer that. But
I want to see the absolute. I want to see the Jack Hughes, Austin Matthews.
That'd be great, but I don't want the U.S. to win.
Yeah.
And I don't want Matthews to aggravate an injury playing for the U.S.
Yeah.
And we need him for the playoffs.
Because, we're selfish.
Yeah, we're selfish. And I was kind of thinking along the lines before he did come back, because it kind of like came out of nowhere. It was kind of like, we don't really know when he's coming back. And then the Boston game, they're just like, all right, Matthews is back.
Yeah, and there seemed to be no indication.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's only Matthews, the Leafs training staff, and a doctor in Germany know what's up. Like.
So it was kind of like along the lines of like, maybe the Leafs work a little bit of LTIR magic here. Las Vegas Golden Knights.
Whoa. Yes, please.
But
do something.
Now, so
make it the year.
Could you imagine though? You're taking $13 million off the books.
This loophole is freaking insane.
It's just as long as
Matt Stone is injured again.
Mark Stone.
We can go get anybody we want.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Sorry, Mark Stone.
Yeah. Matthews,
Oh, my
$13
back's
million
hurt.
off the books.
Oh,
LTIR.
Matthews, your wrist might be hurting there,
Yeah.
pal.
The one disadvantage of that is that you're going in cold into the playoffs. You haven't played in months.
So skate at home, Matty.
It's not the same.
Go for a little jog on the Arner.
It's not the same.
Holy smokes.
Anyway, that's kind of it. All I had there. I don't. If the player's healthy, you play. That's my mindset. I would much prefer to have Matthews play games now and be ready for the playoffs than to sit him on the off chance that we can go get somebody in a trade. And
Well,
then Matthews isn't fresh come playoffs.
I think that loophole's bullshit anyway. So crush that. We're not part of that. Like, just because the loophole exists doesn't mean you should be taking advantage.
I don't think it's bullshit.
I understand that. Well, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. Screw off, okay?
It's not bullshit. It's not. That's part of.
It's called integrity. Have a little, okay? Vegas. Sorry, I know Vegas. The whole, is that a state? No, that's Nevada. Whole city. Maybe a little bit devalued of moral judgment. However, it's so annoying how consistent it is. Have integrity and get the culture right. I think it's
Tampa's done it.
Oh no, Florida's a little empty of moral value.
Yes.
It's the Disney.
I want you to tell me the difference between Toronto and those two teams. What's the difference?
Physicality, goal scoring.
They've won cups in this millennium.
I think some depth players. I think.
So you want to bitch about it? They're going out to win.
Yeah.
It's not cheating.
It bugs the shit out of me.
It might bug you, but it's not cheating. You're allowed to do it.
It's not cheating. Batman, do something. Or everyone lean into it. Lean into it till it's intolerable.
Here's what I think. So Vegas kind of did that last year. It didn't work.
Correct.
It didn't work because they had too many guys that were doing it. Mark Stone, terrific player, great leader, one of the better players on the team.
Been around for a long time.
But Mark Stone's a winger. Mark Stone is not Jack Eichel. Mark Stone isn't Alex Pietrangelo. He's not a goalie. I think you can kind of go in and give Mark Stone a little bit of time to find his game back through the first round, and then he's good to go for the last 3 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
The Leafs don't have the depth Vegas has, so the Leafs can't afford to do that.
And to be fair, he is a guy who's had multiple back surgeries.
Yeah,
there is a legitimate kind of need if you're the GM of them to be like, hey, Mark, go heal up for a couple weeks, go take a month off.
Like Tampa Bay can afford to do that because they have the depth. The Leafs don't have the depth.
And frankly, who's Vegas playing in the first round?
We'll see. As of now, they're the top team in the West, so whoever's last playoff spot in the West.
So he has a little bit of time, and the rest of the team
Whereas last year they played Dallas round 1. They barely got into the playoffs and played Dallas round 1. And they were up 2-0.
Yeah.
So it's not like they got punked or anything. But, in normal circumstances, Dallas-Vegas could be the conference final.
Yeah.
Like, realistically, it could be that. That could be the conference final this year. But they found ways to win. The Leafs haven't done that.
So what do we do?
If you were to tell me what's LTIR Domi to free up the $4 million, yeah, 100%. Domi can go fucking skiing for all I fucking care. LTIR, get somebody in there and you can fucking healthy scratch him for the playoffs.
Honestly.
Yeah.
That might be the play.
Yeah. Bad example. Not that I would want this, but like Marner and Nylander, maybe you can get away with it a little bit because they're wingers. They're not centers. But again,
but I wouldn't want to take that shot.
Just because we're so overly reliant on a few players because we don't have the depth, we can't afford to do that.
Yeah. If Pacioretty wanted to go take a couple days off, that's fine.
Like McMahon, guys like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's just kind of...
We're getting very tangential this episode.
Yeah. And the last thing, so we talked about Nye. Nye has had a good week. He had a hattie. I think he had 5 in 3 games or something.
Yeah.
We talked about it a little bit on the night of his hat trick. What do you think he will get? He is a restricted free agent this offseason. What do you think the Leafs
The the
will pay
the
him?
the number we floated when we were talking about it, I think was between 4 and 5. I think you're keen maybe a little bit more south because we were talking about it before the game,
Yeah,
and then he happened to
and
show
then he
up
went
that
off.
night,
He went
and
off. He made me look like shit.
I was screaming, "Pay the man!"
Big mush. But I think you were gearing more like 4 to 5, and I'm maybe gearing more 3 to 4.
I'm in the I where I'm comfortable is like a 4-1. I think five's too much. I agree with you. I think five is kind of getting into the insane. Even a high four is a little
I
bit
do.
much.
Okay,
Like a 4-1, 4-2, I'm like, you know what?
here's what I'll say. The way money goes around the league, I would say Nyes is worth at least 5. The issue I have is that teams just dish out, here's an 8 times 8 because you show potential.
Mhm.
I don't like that.
How are a lot of teams feeling about
I don't like that.
Pierre Dubois? About Patrick Laine?
I don't like that. There's going to be cases where it works. Like Jack Hughes is going to look terrific. His contract's going to look unbelievable in a few
Yeah.
years. Nathan McKinnon did it, $6 million a year for whatever it was, and it was the reason the Avs were able to go out and get guys and win the cup.
Yep. Now,
Listen, I want to pay a player based on what he has proven, not what we think he's going to do.
Okay.
Nyes has been very good. He's very good on the forecheck. He uses his body very well. He's good in the net front.
Mm-hmm.
It's been the tipping lately has been crazy. He's been unbelievable with the tipping.
Yeah.
His offensive game has gotten like the production's been better this year. But it's not some like upper echelon elite offensive numbers here.
No. It's good.
Yeah, it's good.
It's good. And he went through a streak where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, on a week to week basis, yeah, he's in some of the top echelon of the players, but he will have down weeks and
Yeah.
very quiet weeks.
Yeah, he's had tons of quiet
It's been some
weeks,
ups and
kind of ebbs
downs.
and flows.
Um,
He's kind of like a 50, 60 point guy right now,
yeah.
which is very good. It's very solid. That's the kind of secondary scoring we need.
So then you go,
But so tell me this. So when Nylander and Marner came up off their entry level, and Matthews, but Matthews is the upper echelon player.
when your first game in
He
the
scored
you
40 in
score
your first game. He scored 40 as a rookie. Okay, that's different.
little different.
Yeah, a little different. But like Marner going out and saying, "I want 11 million right now." Was Marner's an $11 million player now? Was he an $11 million player as a 20-year-old?
No. And
Nylander
I
went
think
out,
part of that was just excitement.
but that's my point. I
Yeah.
don't want to. I'm not
Yeah.
paying guys based on, oh, you might do this in the future, so I'm going to pay you this much.
But he's
Fuck off.
but he's not asking 11.
No, no, no. But I'm kind of gearing more towards Nylander here.
Okay.
So Nylander off his entry level, his deal was just under 7.
Mm-hmm.
So it was 6.9 something. And it was a big ordeal. He held out to get some money. The Leafs didn't want to pay him that what he wanted, and whatever. On the last day before he was eligible, before he could play, because if he didn't sign after that day, before that date, he would not be able to play that year. So he signed for 6.9. And I would say Nylander showed a lot more offensive ability,
Offensive, yeah.
more than what Nyes has shown. Obviously, maybe overall game, Nyes is probably a little better,
Yeah.
but Nylander's offensive production wasn't what it is now, but it was, you could see where it was going, and it was already very good.
So then it becomes, okay, look at a guy who's, on pace for 40, 50 points.
Yeah.
What's the market paying for that right now?
Yeah.
Because that's the other.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a binary choice. Either we sign him or we don't. And if we don't, what's
I think a comparable. Listen, if we signed him for 5.5, I wouldn't like throw a hissy fit. I love Nyes. I think he's a terrific player. I'm just saying, based off of, I want to pay guys. I would rather pay Nyes 3 to 4 for 2 or 3 years here, get a bridge, and then when he blows his ass up, I'll fucking pay you. I'll pay you what you deserve, but show it.
because it has been okay, is he better? So this is the other half of that question. Is he better this year than he was last year? I
100%.
think the answer is obviously yes.
100%.
Okay, there's a little track record there.
Yeah.
It's not a big track record. So you have the two risks. It's going to be okay, you overpay him and then he falls off a cliff and you can't move him and it looks like a really shitty contract. Or it's you pay him a little bit more than maybe what's ideal, but maybe you sign him to like a 4.1 by 4 year. And in that fourth year, you're looking really smart if it
Yeah.
works out. And then you can jump him to the whatever because again we're expecting more
And the
increases in
cap's
terms of
going
the
to go
cap.
up.
So in a couple years, if this is year 3 and he's still even like a 40, 50, maybe pushing high 50 point guy, you're going to look really good and that's going to feel really nice.
Yeah.
So then it becomes balance of probabilities. What's more likely? I think it is more likely with Nice's size, who he's playing with, if he's willing to, and this is where you need to kind of know what he's doing in the off season. If he's putting in that training, if he's getting the proper mentorship, I think the value that Joe Thornton brought to Austin Matthews,
Yeah.
you saw it on the mentorship.
The mentor trip. Yeah.
If he's getting that sort of development, I think you take the chance of maybe we overpay him by 300,000 and it doesn't feel very good and we wish we
Yeah.
had him at 3.8 but we gave him 4.1,
Yeah.
4.2. As opposed to shit, okay, he's taken off like a rocket and we have to pay him $6 million in 2 years and sign him to a term because we're really going to commit to this guy. I think it's going to feel better overpaying by 300,000 for 4 years as opposed to getting 2 years of decent value and then having to spend a fortune and deal with this again. That's my thought on it.
You're laying out some good points. What I would say to that, I don't think Nyes is ever going to be some like stud point producer. I don't think that's his game.
No, I agree. He's big. He's willing to get in there. He
I
gets some
think
tips.
Nyes at his peak. If you kind of like fast forward to what we think Nyes could be, and if that was what his high end, what his value would be now, I'd say he's probably a $7 to $8 million player
Okay.
in that range.
Okay.
Maybe like 8.5, 9 at the most.
Because
And on today's value. But when you go in a couple of years, the values are going to go up a little bit. But on today's value, I think that's where I would see his ceiling being.
yeah, I don't know. And what do you think of the comparison of him and Hyman in terms of
Yeah,
play style? In terms of
yeah,
okay, you've got this guy that honestly, if Hyman would have loved to have Hyman, we couldn't pay him what he wanted, and that's fair.
and that's another aspect.
And that's another aspect, and that is a mismanagement, I think, on management when that was
Yeah,
occurring. So, okay, how do you navigate that then? How do you hedge your bet of if this guy really works out, we want him to one want to stay here, two give him a reason to stay here, and manage the financial side of things to be able to afford to resign him
yeah,
if that works out.
yeah. I think it could benefit both sides.
Agreed. And that's
If
why I
you,
want to like toe the line towards being like, no, we're seeing what we're seeing. We're staring and I don't know, this is weird, but it's like I'm staring at the color yellow and I don't want to start being like, well, maybe that's green. He seems to be a very good player.
yeah,
He seems to be
yeah,
getting better over time. I understand it sucks that it's like after the season we have to re-sign him, but with the evidence that you have in front of you, I just think there's way more potential there. And I understand you don't ideally want to sign a potential, but when it's the case of like 500 grand, maybe pay him and get a little bit more term. And then if it starts to look ugly, then you start changing your books.
I'm not saying a difference of 500 grand. I'm talking like 2 million here.
Okay. And this is maybe where like
Yeah.
I, 5, 6 would be it.
You're talking about what Hyman wanted. Hyman gets 5.5
Yeah.
from Edmonton,
Yeah.
and Leafs wouldn't pay it.
That looks really bad right now.
But I wouldn't pay Nyes 5.5 right now.
Nor should you, because Hyman had way more history
Yeah,
to go off of.
yeah,
And frankly, I think Hyman at this same point of the re-signing period
yeah.
was a better player than Matt Nyes is.
What he is now.
Yeah,
Nice could be better in the future, and but obviously
correct.
Hyman has popped off a little bit in Edmonton. But again, a lot of that. Listen, I love Hyman, terrific player, but a lot of in Toronto and Edmonton, a lot
Mhm.
of like the higher end points years. Look at who you're playing with, right?
Yeah,
Okay, I would be okay like going to 4.5. I'd be okay with that,
yeah.
but I wouldn't go long term,
So what are you saying is long term?
like 5 years or more.
Yeah, I agree. Max is going to be 4. I think max you do is 4, and
And I,
that's if you think it's most likely
yeah,
scenarios he's going to
yeah,
continue to get better. You're looking to be real smart
yeah.
in year 3 and 4.
I think I could benefit both sides. If you look at Matthews and Nyes is from the same place, and
Hmm.
maybe there's a little bit of an influence there.
Sure. Hey, we grew up going to the same diner in the
Take a
morning.
take a risk. Matthews, listen, obviously Matthews ain't got nothing to worry about.
Generational talent, Matthews.
Matthews is one of the better players in the NHL. So Matthews can go out and say, all right, I'm going to make a lot of guys will go and say, okay, I want 13, 14 million now, but I'm going to sign it for 7, 8 years. And they're stuck on that deal. Matthews is like, well, I want it for 4 or 5 years. And then when that deal's up, my market's going to be worth even more because the cap's going to be higher.
Yep.
And he's going to go sign you for even more. He's smart. He's maximizing his earnings. Now, Nice isn't going to be that good.
No. And I don't think anyone's that delusional to say he will be.
Yeah, even like I wouldn't even in terms of like offensive production, he's not going to hit what Marno Nylander hit.
I don't yeah. I think his natural place is like a line 2 guy.
At the most, I could see Nyes being like point per game. At the most,
That would be phenomenal.
yeah,
If you can get a point per game out of a nice,
yeah.
great.
That's like I think that's his ceiling.
Yeah. And even that I think is generous.
Based on who he plays with.
Okay.
Based on who he plays with. If he's playing with who he plays with now, and he takes steps and gets better, then yeah, I could definitely see it.
Yeah.
If you're on the ice
A
with players that
consistent
good,
Austin Matthews
yeah.
present, yes, you're going to get more assists.
So that's just my thinking. Like Nice isn't going to be a 100 point player
Yeah.
anyway. That's just my thoughts. I think and I just, not even just like take away all the value of this and at least need to save money here and here and here. I just, in my
Your heart of
heart,
hearts. Your hearts of hearts.
yes, we'll say that. I don't agree with paying players based off of potential. I agree with paying players. What have you shown me that you can do in this league?
I understand.
Prove it.
I understand. The I think the double edge of that is um finding talent with a lot of kind of the feeling of potential. It feels more rare now.
And
There's more teams.
you at this point in the NHL, you have 32 teams now. There's more teams. You need guys to overproduce on entry level deals in order to be successful. That's kind of like
Yeah.
that's a big reason why Dallas has been successful. Like a ton of guys on entry levels that produce,
Yep.
and tons of guys that are because they have guys that are older that aren't worth what they're getting paid.
Yeah.
Right? Segan, Ben.
Ben. Duchesne's still probably getting what he's worth. He's had some good points. His points this year are good.
Duchesne is kind of like
He's going to teeter. There is a mountain that he does need to fall off.
Duchesne has always been that guy where it's kind of like he's talented, but is he like upper echelon? And does the rest of his game translate?
He is a top 30% of the league, hands down, I think. But he's a very good line 2 guy.
Yeah. My point, like I would say that Ben, even if Ben's production isn't there, but you still have his leadership and he's still a physical player, he still bangs. And it's not like his points totals are complete dog shit or anything.
No.
And like just the leadership in a room, and that's
We
a
were
guy
talking about
you want.
we were talking about last
Yeah.
night. He's even having
So
great
like
production
yeah,
the
like
last
his
week or two.
play maybe isn't worth what he gets paid, but like
There's
there's
intangibles.
still intangible stuff, and then you have those guys in the entry level that make. So you have guys that are near the end of their careers that make more than what they're worth, and you have guys in the beginning that make less than what they're worth. It kind of equalizes the playing field a little
A
bit,
little bit.
and then Texas, no state tax, that helps a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's not just Dallas. That's just I think that's the number one example because they have guys like Johnston and Bork and Stankoven in the lineup.
Yeah.
Harley that just signed a new deal this past offseason. Harley, so like you have young guys in there.
Yep.
that are playing above now in a couple of years when all those guys need new deals. Like I believe Johnson's going to be up soon. If it's not this offseason, it's next, but I think it's this one. He's probably RFA. You're going to give him a little bit of coin.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe that's kind of like when the Seguin contract's gone, when the Ben contract's gone. I don't think the Duchesne one is as much because I think he did sign with Nashville.
Yeah.
And it was kind of
And then
like
he got dealt.
after he was near the top earners in the NHL. It was kind of like after that. So Nashville didn't sign him to like a crazy stupid deal.
Like he's got one more year of like really good production before we see it fall off.
Yeah. And even really good is probably generous. Anyway, that's just what I feel.
Okay. I'm
That's
glad
the
you
way
expressed
things
your.
should be.
I'm glad you expressed.
That's the way the world should be. You gotta prove yourself, and when you prove yourself, you get your keep.
Get what you earn.
Yeah.
Okay. Um.
Okay, that's all I got. Like specifically on the Leafs. There's a couple of topics that might touch on the Leafs a little bit, but it's not just Leafs.
Okay.
I don't know if you had anything else on the Leafs.
No.
We might be.
Nylander needs a little wake up.
Yeah, he had a nice night. What night was it? Was it the Carolina game?
I think it was the Carolina game.
He scored. He had like a bunch of breakaways.
Yeah.
And he scored on one, but he was buzzing that night.
Because
It might have been the second Philly game.
I'm hoping everything's all right with him physically.
Yeah,
Because it seems like a uncharacteristic drought.
I think it's just kind of like the slodge of the NHL regular season. You're like in the middle of the season.
You're not going to be on top
It's
of the
kind of
world
like
for.
the Leafs are first. We know they're going to be in the playoffs. What are we really fucking playing for here? It's like, let's get going here a little bit, but
Yeah.
yeah, I believe it was the Carolina game because they were up 2-0.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's it.
that's it. Okay. Elsewhere because it's going to be a long one because we haven't been here 2 weeks, but we did run pretty long with the Leaf stuff. Jonathan Toews has expressed interest in making a return to the NHL. If he does, should the Leafs make a run at him?
It was compelling when I first heard about it. When I first heard about it, it's like, well, what does he want? That's a big question. What do you want, Johnny?
I think it depends. It's entirely dependent on when he wants to come back. If he's saying he wants to play this year, pump the brakes.
Don't like
I don't
that.
think any contenders are coming out and saying, I want to sign Jonathan Toews right now because we don't know what he's going to be like.
I am so happy you found spirituality in India. That means you haven't been skating. Not a whole lot of ice rinks in India. Okay.
Well, he's been back a while now.
Some fantastic cuisine, some questionable hockey conditions. So, what have you been doing?
I honestly don't think he realistically expects to come back this year. I don't think.
If any team signs him this year, I will just.
If somebody does, it'll be a lower end team.
To be like, okay, we're gonna sign you right now, play with us a little bit, but we're really
maybe some
for
leadership skills for. I'm trying to bring some young guys up.
Hey, here's a guy who's won Stanley
Cups. Show a little
couple
bit
Stanley Cups.
That's the only teams that would sign him like here now. I think what he said got taken out of context a little bit. I think it was more of a I want to play again, but I'm not sure. More than like people were it was kind of like people were taking it as he's gonna play again.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, it was kind of like a weird hiatus. Like it wasn't.
It was a little strange because he didn't retire, but it was kind of like.
And he explicitly said, "I'm not retiring."
And he was hurt a lot, so he didn't really play much before this happened. So yeah, so I would agree. I wouldn't sign him this year. Um, I would imagine it would be in the summer, and maybe teams look at him on a PTO to see what he's got.
Yeah.
Maybe he just has like a skate, or he goes and a lot of guys will skate together from different teams throughout the summer. Maybe he goes and skates with
go to an
guys.
off-season training camp.
Yeah, and then it's kind of like, okay, Matthews and McDavid are skating together. They tell Toronto Edmonton he looks fucking good, or he looks like shit. Don't sign him, right?
Yeah, and there's going to be an element of how do you feel?
Yeah,
it's not even just your desire. It's okay. You have desire to play. Now go put on some skates. See how you like it.
So we both kind of agree it's not going to be this year. If he does want to come back next year, who are possible suitors?
I mean, you know what? The fun answer would be Detroit. Go hook up with your old buddy, Mr. Kaner.
Kane, yeah.
I think that would be a fun
I
idea.
don't think he'll do that.
I don't think so either, but I think it's fun.
I don't think he'll do that. I
Um,
think the Chicago rivalry there a little bit. I don't
the
think he's
only
down for that.
reason to go is to go with a team to maybe get another cup. So it has to be a contender.
Yeah,
You're not just going to join a team. You don't need an extra million from, I don't know, San Jose.
yeah.
Unless you are like, I really like this Celebrini guy. I just want to play with him because I think that'd be really cool. Fair enough. You want to go into the mentorship side of things because you found yourself? Fantastic.
I think there's only one team he'd do that for.
Toronto Maple Leafs.
No, mentorship. Like,
Chicago,
yeah,
go Bedard.
it's the only team he'd do it for.
You could see him going to Chicago, go home. Fair enough.
I don't think he's going to,
I could see it. I think it's
but I
unlikely,
think
but
if he was going to go to a team where it's like I'm taking a mentorship role to help young guys, and he's not going to a team to win, that Chicago's the only team he's going to do that for.
yeah, okay. Um, so then it becomes okay, contenders.
Contenders. This is so I have a couple of teams. So the Leafs are one. The Leafs kind of need a third line center.
Yep.
He'd be cheap.
Where's he from?
This is what I'm gonna get into. Is probably one of the favorites here. Um, so the teams I have on the list are Colorado. Colorado could be maybe second, third line help. Maybe help Millstat a little bit.
Yeah.
As a second line guy, he's been solid, but he's still a young guy and could use some guidance, right? And maybe Tays with because the Landeskog, we don't know what the fuck's going on with Landeskog.
No idea.
It's kind of been discussed a lot how intense McKinnon is. So you kind of want another guy in the locker room, maybe offset the intensity from McKinnon, maybe a little bit calmer guy like Landeskog is. That's kind of the sense that I get in Colorado.
Okay.
So that could be an option. I could see Boston because Boston needs centers desperately.
I think Boston's a bit of a stretch just because it's like you're joining a team that sucks and is going to suck.
Just option.
Okay.
They could still be a playoff team. And anyone that makes the playoffs, who knows? You never know in the NHL.
Okay.
Tampa, just because Tampa historically is fucking ruthless and just doesn't give a fuck.
I don't mind the Tampa
And
call
same
out.
as Vegas.
That was the other one that came
Yeah.
to mind was Vegas.
We Tampa and Vegas would just kind of like third, fourth line role for leadership purposes and just a fucking guy. And those guys just are ruthless as fuck. And I'll say, okay, you're gone. I don't give a shit. You're in. Those two teams have kind of been historically through the past 5-6 years are the most ruthless ones.
You mean he's not going to go to New York?
He's not going to New York. There's a couple more here.
Okay.
And we mentioned Toronto, and that's kind of like third line depth role. We don't know what the fuck's going to happen in Vancouver, but Vancouver has too much talent to waste here. Not saying he's going to the
a great
first, second line role.
A great unifier?
Could be.
A guy to settle down the room, take control, and tell everyone to grow up?
Either bring them together, or if you've already dealt one, bring this guy in. He can help Hughes a little bit. Hughes is a young captain.
Yeah.
Say, all right, this guy's gone now. We chose you. Let's get it fucking moving here. Yeah. And then the last one, this is where he's from. At least he's from the province. He's from Manitoba. So the Winnipeg Jets.
I don't mind it.
The Winnipeg Jets
they need some depth.
Their forward depth is actually very nice, but they need a little bit of know-how.
I think
in winning.
On paper, just looking at the roster, their forward depth is nice. Their forward depth has stopped producing. Perfetti's done absolutely nothing in 6 weeks.
Yeah, I think their team as a whole has kind of fallen back. Here's what I think. This is Winnipeg's window.
Yep, the next year or two.
I don't think they're there. I don't think it is there, but I think maybe it's kind of like we still have Hellebuck here. Scheifele's got a couple more years.
Next year
he's still going to produce a little bit.
Next year's Kyle Connor's contract year, I believe.
Connor is kind of like he's American. Is he going to want to stay in the middle of fucking Winnipeg throughout the winter?
Paying Canadian taxes.
At least he doesn't live in Ontario or BC or Alberta. It's kind of like, is Winnipeg going to be there? But he could stop.
If it's a go year, if it's a one and go year, why not?
Yeah, it's kind of to say, this is my hometown or my home province at least. I can help these guys. and hopefully we can make a run.
Maybe we
And
can
just
make
hell buckets hot, and let's just do it.
the stars align.
Yeah. Realistically, the reasons why a lot of these guys, first of all, who knows what he wants in terms of money?
That's I think
I think
the
it's kind of a
the
mystery.
the biggest
Yeah.
disqualifier is what do you want?
I know he's older, but like he could say I'm worth this, and teams are not agree. I don't think he's coming in asking for 5 million plus.
No, he won't play if he is.
Yeah, but he could be saying like 3 to 4. Like I got a lot of experience. I'm a winner.
Unless it's between league minimum and 2, I think it doesn't
Yeah,
make sense
I
for
don't think so
most
either.
teams.
But
And even 2, I'm not super
here's
comfortable
what I would
with.
say: Toronto and Colorado, and I know a lot of people threw Edmonton out there. I don't see Edmonton. I just don't see it.
I don't either.
Um,
Unless you kick Jeff Skinner.
those three, just based on other people saying Edmonton, but those three, it's gonna be really hard. They're really up against the cap.
Yeah.
It's gonna be tough. Even if he makes very little money, it's still gonna be tough.
You have to have a justifiable reason
Yeah,
to be like, here's $1
yeah,
million that we're literally just taking a chance on
yeah.
something with.
Tampa and Vegas, I don't think are too unsimilar, but maybe not as bad as those teams. And it was kind of like we can probably afford to take a flyer on if he can will take very little money.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Chicago will have a problem paying him,
No.
and if he's in it for the payday, they'd probably be the most
Lenient.
lenient because they
Because
could say
not okay beyond just
if they're willing to give Foligno the money they gave him or Bertuzzi or Taylor Hall, then
you're gonna make it back in
yeah,
jersey sales
yeah.
alone.
And
Go
then
do some limited edition release. Give people a reason to get
yeah,
another Taves jersey.
and then Boston and Vancouver, more along the lines of and Detroit. I would put this in that category as well. Are you loyal to the Chicago? Really loyal to the Chicago Blackhawks?
Yeah.
Because Detroit and Boston, it's kind of original six. They played Boston in the finals the one year, and then Vancouver. They had some battles there in the
My knee jerk
playoffs.
reaction is I don't think there's a whole lot of like loyalty there. If it was
No,
anyone that he had super bad blood with, then sure. Um, I agree. The Vancouver. I just don't think Boston makes sense. So I'm not even going to address them. I don't think like original six narrative matters much. It's all going to be personal grudges, if any, and given he's into karma now,
yeah.
it's like the
Well, like I'm just saying, like Boston, they played Boston in the final, so there's a
yeah.
little bit of a thing there, and there's just kind of like pieces of shit to play against.
I'm
But
not going to any team with Marchand.
they played together in the Olympic team, so you never know.
It was forced.
What I would say is that like Boston, from a salary cap standpoint, could probably afford to pay him the most as a team that is still like good enough that they're going to be a playoff team.
Yeah.
They could be a playoff team, right? Whereas all these other teams are kind of like, we can't pay you much. We want you, but we can't pay you a lot.
Yeah.
Whereas Boston can say, we can't promise you playoff hockey. We can promise you we're going to be at least close, and maybe you push us over the edge. And honestly, a lot of what Boston is missing is locker room culture with Bergeron and Chara and Krejci, guys like that are gone. That's a big reason why Boston's gotten worse because their talent level hasn't really changed that much over the past couple of years.
Mm, maybe it's changed. I think it's changed a good amount.
What did they lose?
Well, Bergeron, Krejci, Chara,
But Chara's like way back now. Chara's not
Marchand's not
recent.
producing.
Marchand has obviously gotten worse. It's just come with age in terms of production.
Zaka's doing next to nothing.
Krejci left to Europe, came back for 1 year.
Yeah.
So he was gone before that. Just he came back for that one great season. And like even Bergeron, yeah, Bergeron does a ton of great things, but like point production wise, is he really that terrific at the end of his career? Not
And,
really.
yeah. Okay. I think what it comes down to is you're going to need to understand really kind of plainly, Jonathan Tate, what do you want out of coming back?
Yeah.
That's what it boils
Yeah.
down to. Do you want a mentorship role? Do you want to win a
Yeah.
cup? Do you just want to go relive the glory days? What do you want?
Yeah.
That's what's going to or do you want to just get an extra little paid? That vacation costs you more money than you thought. What do you want?
You know what I think it is?
What do you
I
think?
think he's just a good Manitoba boy. Fucking loves the game of hockey.
I think
He just
that's
wants to play at the highest level because he still thinks that he can.
I think that's honestly, I think you're heading down the right path. I don't think it's for the money. He's got money.
I don't think it's for the money, and like he doesn't really need to chase cups. He's won three.
That's yeah. I don't think it's for the cups either. So
Like
I
just
think
like
it's
Crosby. If Crosby had played his whole career and had 0 cups at this point, I think he'd be fucking out of there.
which is why I think the mentorship thing is probably higher on the tier than most
Yeah,
people will give it credit for.
yeah,
I don't think he's
yeah,
motivated to go win cups. I think he wants to leave a legacy
yeah,
beyond what he's already done. And then, hey, go do some mentorship. Maybe
yeah.
get into coaching.
I think that a mentorship could be a big thing because of a little bit of how soured people are on Chicago because of what has come out since then.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think maybe some people kind of soured on Taze a little bit. He was the captain.
yeah. And even
Did he
even
know? Did he not know? Who knows? But
even with Kane
yeah,
is not without tarnish on his
yeah.
reputation. The whole Chicago period, there is a lot of stuff that is not so great.
I think here's what I think on Taze. I think Taze, when he was playing, was very appreciated. But since then, it's kind of gone down where it's like, oh, well, Kane was the main point producer on the team.
Mm,
But Taze was the heartbeat of that team.
yeah,
And Taze was the guy. And from 2010, if you go back and watch Canada's Olympic team at the 2010 Olympics in Vancouver and you watch every game, Taze was the best player at that tournament. Not just for Canada, for the whole tournament. Taze was the best player at that
yeah,
tournament.
yeah.
Taze just was leadership and wasn't 100-point seasons, but solid production and just intangibles that he brought. And I think he's kind of under recognized now. He wasn't when he was doing it, but I think that whole scandal thing kind of wrecked his name a little bit. So maybe it's kind of like maybe he does want to say, I'm gonna mentor the next generation, improve. I was a good leader. I am a good leader. I didn't know anything about this, and to be clear, I think it's on the organization. I don't think it's on the
No, I don't
players.
think it's on any player.
Because are we entirely sure that the player went to Taze and said this is happening to me? I don't think he went to Taze. I think he went to management and management did nothing. That's what I think. But we're not going to get into that.
Yeah, it's too big. We're not the police. We're
Yeah,
not investigators.
yeah. That's just my opinion. Now, if he did go to Taze and say something and Taze did fuck all, then that would be shitty, and that would be a
That'd
huge.
be horrific.
But we don't know that happened, and I don't think it did.
No, and speculating on it,
Yeah.
I don't think helps anyone.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Any you threw Detroit out there? Any other teams you thought maybe that I didn't mention?
No, I think we mentioned most of the ones that I
Yeah,
think make the most sense.
yeah. Okay. A couple of signings. I'm gonna do the simple one first. It's not the big news one, but it's the simpler one. Ridley, Ridley Gregg uh, signs an extension with Ottawa, 4 years, 13 million, which comes out to 3.25 AAV. Solid value. I think he's a solid third line guy.
He's fine.
Yeah. Now the weird one, the one that we'll talk about a little bit, is Anaheim's extension with Frank Vatrano. So Anaheim has extended Frank Vatrano to a 3-year, $18 million extension. Now here's the twist. He has deferred half the money. So with signing bonuses, his AAV will be 4.57 over the next 3 years.
Okay.
Instead of it would be 6 million a year. I don't know how that math works out. It should be probably 3 million a year if you're deferring 9 and you're making 9. But there's some signing bonus shit that I don't get.
Sure.
Um, but the deferred money, he has deferred it. So like we talk about Otani's deal, Otani deferred his money, but as soon as the deal's done, he's getting paid this much a year over whatever period. But Toronto has deferred it to 2035.
A decade.
So this is a decade from now. Where in 2035 he will make 900,000 a year for 10 years.
Okay. And why would he do this?
It does help the team. It helps the Ducks.
Team guy.
Maybe he's a team guy.
Maybe he's a
Maybe
team
that's
guy.
what he's thinking.
Frankie V, team guy.
A lot of people, a lot of investment people, and you're big into this stuff, would say that money now is more valuable than money later because the money you're going to get paid now and you can invest it and make money on top of money.
Time value of money.
Yeah. But this is I think a lot of it has to do with where he's playing right now, where
Ding
he
ding ding
lives right
ding
now.
ding ding ding.
I don't think many agents or financial advisors would recommend to defer your money to 2035 and only take 900K a year for 10 years if you're making what he's making in the millions, right? But if Vetrano says, I'm going to move to Nevada, I'm
Oh,
going to move to Texas, I'm going to
oh,
move to Florida, I'm going to move to
oh.
Tennessee, no state tax, he's making 900K a year tax free.
Suddenly, the interest that you could have accrued or whatever return you could have gotten, from a 10% market return,
Totally the same.
if not, maybe even a little bit more
Yeah.
advantageous with how much he's
Yeah.
spreading it out.
Now it's entirely dependent on what he does post career. I believe he's from Boston, which I think Massachusetts has some pretty high taxes as well.
Yeah.
Not sure if he'll want to move back there because 2035, and Toronto's not. I don't know how old he is now, but I would imagine he's probably out of the league by 2035.
Yeah, you're doing it for tax purposes.
Yeah.
That's the entire thing. And it's a really interesting concept, and I think it's like it speaks largely to what a lot of players are kind of it's the Buffalo conversation. It's you're in New York, you're paying a bunch of state tax. You aren't really enjoying living there. Um and you're seeing way less of your paycheck, whereas if you lived somewhere else, you'd be seeing a lot more of it.
Okay, so Frank Toronto is 30.
Yeah, he was up there.
Yeah.
2035, he is well out of the league.
And he is not like some elite.
He's not a stunner who's going to play into his
Yeah.
late 30s.
So
He might have like
yeah.
4 years left.
I think the Ducks were willing to pay him that much because of what he's willing to do.
Correct. I think it was kind of a mutually agreed.
Because otherwise he wouldn't have made six. He wouldn't be making $6 million a year.
Correct. He had a great start to the season
Yeah.
last year.
And he had a good year last year, a solid year, not a great year, but
No, he slowed down a lot after like November.
he had 60 something points on one of the worst teams in the league.
Pretty damn good.
So that's not bad. So I know you didn't agree with it when you first heard it,
No, I thought it was insane money.
which I on paper it sounds kind of stupid, but then when I first heard it, I was kind of like, this is. No, I'm not talking about the money in Anaheim's aspect. I'm talking about him deferring it.
The structure is like
It's a little strange.
once you get reminded, oh, it's California.
Yeah.
He had some CPA or some accountant who laid out some numbers, and he said this is the best for me.
Yeah.
And you're going to be paying an overall lower tax rate because you're under the $1 million. Your increment, it's a sliding scale, right? Taxes are paid. Your first set of income is paid at this tax rate. The more you go up in that, the more you make on an annualized basis, the more that increased value you see less and less and less.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's also by chance that it's paid out over the long term that it is. It's not like, okay, I'm going to get it all as a lump sum once we're done. I think it's a very much a investment strategy as opposed to I'm a good guy for the team, but I think there was
Yeah.
given
No.
there was a give and take. It's
Yeah.
we'll give you more money if you do it this way. You want to do this? You know what? This sounds good for us.
Yeah.
We can make a lot. That gives us so much more flexibility to continue this kind of rebuild because they're in a rebuild. It seems to be honestly okay. They're playing decent recently.
They're a little better.
And so you've got some young guys that you are going to have to re-sign in a couple years. You're going to have to re-sign. I think you have to re-sign Leo Carlson. I don't think he.
Yeah, it's only his second year, so he's probably got another year left on his entry level.
You've got some guys that you're going to have to deal with, and you want to make some acquisitions. Yeah. I think this is kind of mutually just beneficial.
Yep. Like I said, I mean, I'm guessing. I don't know for sure, but I would assume California is the highest taxes.
Yeah, I think so.
Highest tax state in the U.S.
Yeah.
But I know that Massachusetts isn't cheap either.
No. So maybe he already knows I'm going to just hang it out in Nevada for a decade.
Yeah. Yeah. He kind of just pushed it back to when his career's over, and he's got a safety blanket, and he can kind of figure out what he wants to do.
I also,
Yeah,
frankly, know some people who have a primary residence in Florida.
yeah,
They don't live in
in
Florida.
Florida. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
So it was interesting. Interesting.
It's the first time you've kind of seen that in the
I
NHL.
I like to that
To
extent,
that
and
extent,
even
yes.
other sports. Like I haven't. You have seen a little bit of deferred money in the NHL, but not to like this extent.
In the NFL guy who got his money in crypto. Like
Yeah,
you're
that's
seeing
just
some
it.
more creative
Yeah,
stuff in terms of comp.
yeah,
Um, but yeah,
yeah. Yeah. So hopefully that good for him.
good for
If
him.
that's how I mean, he's probably gonna make. He makes. I know he's not getting paid now, but I don't think if he didn't defer it, I don't think he would get 6 million a year.
No, he
He
wouldn't.
wouldn't have gotten that $18 million deal.
No.
So, and this is the NHL; it's guaranteed money. It's not the NFL.
Mhm.
So, okay, no more financial shit. Let's get back to hockey. So we talked about Patty Waugh a little bit. We debated a little bit last night. We said let's save it for here.
You made a compelling argument because, of course, seeing the clips, seeing the highlights in the game situation, you're like, Patrick Wall, how much glue do you have in your jacket
And
pocket
this
that
is
you're sniffing?
my thing is this is Elliot Friedman kind of laid it out on 32 Thoughts the other day about this, last week or whatever it was, whenever it was. And I told you this last night, where it's like, okay, if there was a minute left and you pulled your goalie and you're on a face-off in your own end, that'd be stupid.
What the hell are you doing?
What are you doing? There's 10 seconds left. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
basically, if you don't win the face-off, you've lost the game. But if it's 10 seconds left, you don't win the face-off, but it's a tight face-off. It's not like the guy wins it clean back to the point. It's kind of like a battle, and maybe goes to the boards or something. You have the extra man on the ice to win the puck back.
Mm-hmm.
So it's either you lose the face-off, you have the extra man to get it back, and then if they score, they score. There's 10 seconds anyway.
It
Or you win the face-off, and then you don't have to wait for the goalie to skate from the
yeah.
crease to the bench to get that guy on the ice. He's already on the ice, and you can go.
The closest thing it felt like it was a Hail Mary.
Yeah,
Even
yeah,
if like do a non-traditional face-off, don't win it back. Knock it forward. Literally slap the puck forward, and you've got every single guy
yeah,
on the ice running a route straight forward.
yeah,
That's kind of what I thought you could kind of do with it.
yeah,
And it felt like, you know what? Maybe he's not a lunatic. Maybe he's a little bit of an
yeah.
innovator.
And I love shit like that. I love guys that are they're out there. They
You're
try shit that
you're,
nobody would think of.
you're thinking different.
You're thinking different. And maybe that's just the Lions fan in me with our coach, but
Go for it every time.
what are we doing here?
Go for it.
What are we doing here? We're gonna play it safe so we don't lose by two. There's 10 seconds left.
You're gonna
You're
lose
gonna lose
anyway.
anyway.
If they win the fake stuff and
Yeah,
score, we still lose. It's the same
exactly.
position we were
If
just
they
in.
win the face-off and we have the goalie in that, oh, so they take a shot and our goalie saves it. We still don't have enough time to get
Yeah.
down the ice and score.
Yeah. That's why I thought the knock it forward strategy would have
Yeah,
been
yeah.
something
So
interesting to
you kind
try.
of changed your tune a
I've
little
changed
bit.
my tune on it.
Yeah.
Looking at it, you're just
Yeah.
like, oh, Patrick Wall's an
And this is not
absolute
my. This
delusion.
is Elliot Friedman. This is not me.
The best hockey reporter around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I first saw it, I was like, it's a little crazy. It's a little out there, but I don't hate it. I didn't. I was kind of neutral about it to start, and then
Yeah.
he kind of swung me like, I like it.
Once you hear it presented that way, you're
Yeah.
like, okay,
Yeah.
I can see it. You don't
Whereas
even have
I
to
know
agree
you
with it.
hated it right away.
Right
'Cause
away,
I
you're just
know
like,
you're like, this guy's an absolute lunatic.
I'm not the biggest Patrick Waugh
Yeah.
fan. As a goalie, sure, was he talented? Yes. Was he charismatic and crazy? Yes. I think as a coach, he's just completely unjustified for frankly being an NHL coach right now or ever. I just don't know why.
It's
I've
just
never
kind of he's proven at the junior level, like he always wins at the junior level. So it's kind of like, do I really want to keep doing this? Like I want to prove myself at the pro level.
fine. That's all I have to say.
Your best friend, Patty Waugh.
Patty Waugh.
We want personality in the game. We love it.
The guy I'm convinced has a knife on him at all times.
Honestly, like it's just kind of wild that out of all teams to hire Patty Waugh, it would be the team that has Lou Lamoriello as a GM.
Patrick Waugh has 9 coaches around him on the bench, at any given time,
Yeah.
only 2 of them are real people. Okay? That is Patrick Waugh in a
Um,
nutshell.
Just kind of like Torts.
If Torts was a little schizophrenic.
Did you see Torts like lose his shit last night?
No.
Torts lost it, and they were winning. They were up 2-0. They ended up winning the game by a lot.
The thing with Torts is like it doesn't matter. He wants to see the game played he wants.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're winning or losing. If you're playing what he wants, then fine.
Yeah.
Even if you're winning, if you're not playing the way he wants you to play, you're gonna know about it.
Torts like absolutely the guy sitting on the bench in front of him, he shoves him out of the way, gets down to the front of the bench and is chewing the ref out. Chews the ref out, and then he tries to get back up, and he has a little bit of a struggle getting back up.
He's getting old.
He's getting
Torts,
a little up there.
Torts. Give him a ladder. Give him a ramp.
Yeah, that was funny. No, we love the. I love Torts.
I used to not like Torts. I'm the big.
I think is he a little hard on guys? Yeah, but I fucking love it. I think it's hilarious.
My tune changed a lot with what he did in Columbus that year.
Yeah. Torts is coaching a lesser teams with less talent. That's the perfect team. Those are the perfect teams.
If you're ever struggling to get to the gym, go listen to Torts' locker room speech from that series. Yeah. You'll get to the fucking gym.
Yeah. That's Torts in the previous era when it wasn't what it is now. He could coach high talented teams.
Yeah.
And even then, like when he won the cup with Tampa, there was big blowouts with LeCavalier. There was a lot of beef there.
Yeah.
And that was like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Over 20 years ago. And so like you kind of like in New York and Vancouver, it didn't really pan out. There's a little bit of
Vancouver
talent. Yeah.
Was he there when the Sedins were there?
I believe at the end of the Sedins, it was kind of the end.
They were never gonna oil and vinegar, oil and water. I don't know.
The absolute best was when Torts was with the Rangers and him and Brooksy in the media. That was the absolute best times. Unbelievable.
Okay.
Let's
get a pace on
back
here.
on track.
We still got dinner to eat eventually.
Yeah, it's gonna be a long one. All right, so the Winter Classic happened. We haven't seen that. St. Louis absolutely pumped Chicago. I don't remember what the final ended up being. It was 5 or 6-1.
We tuned in for a little bit. I remember watching.
We watched most of it. We kind of missed the end because it was New Year's Eve and there was stuff going on. So
we had a murder mystery party.
That wasn't really.
Drew was the killer.
It was the killer. 6-2 was the final. So the storylines from that. So both captains fought each other, Braden Shen and Nick Foligno.
Did they really?
Yeah, nice little scrap. And
I didn't know that.
I think Shen said something a lot. Everyone thought Foligno was the one that started it because Foligno's more of the fighter out of the two.
Yeah.
But Shen said he asked for it because he just said, I want to do this.
I just want to, let's have a little tussle outside.
Yeah. I thought that was funny.
The bones are brittle with those two, though.
Yeah, and they're kind of around the league, like it's kind of known that like Braden Shen is just a great guy.
Yeah,
just a great guy to have in a room, good leader. That's kind of well known throughout the league.
Just looking to live life a little bit and tussle with Foligno.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you love to see it. The big storyline from the game was that Cam Fowler, who hadn't even played 10 games for the Blues yet, played his 1,000th game at the Winter Classic. And not only that, he scored twice.
Well done. Cam Fowler's, it sucks that he was in Anaheim for some of his kind of...
For his whole career.
Prime years, and that kind of sucks. Great player, good guy.
Yeah.
That was cool to see.
An underrated player.
Yeah. Easy to find. You don't hear him talked about a lot.
He's not an super offensive defenseman. He's kind of two-way. He's solid, and he's not
solid two-way.
24 anymore, right? Like he's on the other side of 30.
Yeah, I think he's well into his 30s at this point.
I don't think that well into.
I think he's like 34.
No, I don't think he's that old.
Well, quick fact check here.
Quick fact check.
On the same topic, it's like the reports were that like the Winter Classic hasn't been getting ratings.
He's 33, so kind of in the middle.
Okay.
Yeah, the TV ratings have gone down because it's kind of like, okay, we've seen this how many times now? We get it. It's an outdoor game.
It's an outdoor game.
I think it's a tough day too. I think New Year's Eve, New Year's Day is a tough time to do it.
People are getting ready for stuff. You had it in, was it in the afternoon, early evening?
It's like 5 o'clock.
People are frankly having
4. in Chicago.
A lot of people are doing dinner and getting ready for stuff.
Yeah.
You have Canada US later that night. Are you going to be watching 6 straight hours of hockey without,
Yeah.
vacuuming?
Usually it's New Year's Day, but then the college football playoff is on New Year's Day this year. So they kind of like, okay, maybe we should get away from that. Yeah, the ratings are down. I think it's more of an in-person thing because if you're, I've been to one, and when you're at the game, it's unbelievable. That's so fun. You freeze your ass off, but it's so fun.
That's part of it.
Yeah. I don't think you get rid of it.
No. I think the wrong
think it's fun.
decision would be just because you had
Yeah.
some low ratings, you get rid of it. No.
And I think it's kind of like it's always usually the same teams. It's kind of the teams that have been in the league a long time, and they have to be a little more northern because the southern teams aren't gonna, which we're gonna get into in a second. But usually the southern teams aren't gonna play an outdoor game because there's no snow. But
It just doesn't fit the environment.
we're gonna get to that.
We'll get into it
We're gonna
now
get to
because
that.
I'm going to
We're
go
gonna
off
we're,
here.
we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that.
All right.
But just like the ratings, I think ratings. I've heard that through the NHL and NBA, they're both down. I think the NBA is down a lot more than the NHL.
Yeah.
But they also have more to begin with. Yeah, hockey's such a like specialized environment sport that it's never gonna be like football or basketball.
No.
Or like soccer, right? It's never gonna be. It's like basically only countries that live in cold climate can play this sport, and it's expensive to play. You need ice time, and it's not what it used to be where it was like if it was cold you could go play on a pond. It's never cold enough long enough anymore, at least where we live. Maybe if you go a little further north.
You go up north, Ottawa's
Yeah.
it's gonna
But
be pretty freaking
even
cool.
Ottawa's had trouble with what's the canal or whatever.
Rideau Canal.
Yeah, then they've had trouble for the past couple of years.
Yeah.
It's like I don't think it opened until like a couple weeks ago. Yeah. Like maybe in the new year.
You need like a certain amount of days continuous at a certain temperature before they open it up.
Exactly, and it just hasn't consistently. So weather is tough. So hockey's always never gonna reach the upper echelon of popularity.
Yeah.
In like everywhere, worldwide. Canada, obviously, in Canada, it's number one, but worldwide, obviously, it's grown in the U.S. and even in the southern states in the U.S. It's grown from what it used to be, but it's never going to be because of the price point to play. Not let alone buying equipment. Just the registration is way higher than any other sport.
Cost of traveling,
travel,
hotels.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, it's down because people have seen it before, right? It's kind of like I could probably say I don't watch the Winter Classic every year.
If it's not the Leafs, for us, it's like
it's kind of like I try to watch it, but like if I have something going on, I'm not bending over backwards.
I'm not setting aside a time time out of the day.
Yeah.
Just because it's
if
the Winter
on
Classic.
And I'm not doing anything, great. Which was what happened this year. We watched the game. But,
yeah. For me, it's like the Winter Classic belongs up north. It belongs on a snowy day where you got to.
I haven't even said anything.
Okay.
Yet. Okay, we're gonna get away from this year's Winter Classic because Jack is really itching to. Obviously, the game disappointed this year, so it wasn't great, and the viewership went down. Blah blah blah. So next year's Winter Classic, they announced. So the Winter Classic will take place in Miami, where the Miami Marlins play. Where it'll be the Florida Panthers and the New York Rangers.
Where the hell's Miami?
And then that'll take place on. So we talked about New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. That's going to be January 2nd.
Okay.
And then the Stadium Series is going to Tampa. I believe that's March 1st, I want to say. And that'll be Tampa and Boston.
Okay.
So both the outdoor games next year are in the state of Florida.
Why? Tell me why a humid climate like Miami is getting a winter sport outdoor event. Did you want to wear shorts? Did you not want to wear it too? What was it?
Actually, it's been cold as balls in Florida this year.
Are they getting snow?
I don't know. Probably not.
The Winter
Maybe
Classic.
The northern part of it, but definitely not Miami.
The Winter Classic is a winter classic.
You do know that they've played outdoor games in California.
Don't care. Was wrong then too. It belongs in a place.
Like it's like a new thing.
It's a sin. It like this is worse than I don't know. This is worse than not having bacon on a BLT. There's something fundamentally wrong with it. It can't be called a winter classic when you're in Miami.
It's still winter. It's just not as cold.
No,
It's still winter.
no. Have it on the equator at that point. What? Let's have it in Australia then. Why not have it in Melbourne?
Because nobody's gonna go because it's nobody plays hockey in
It
Australia.
is fundamentally wrong to not have it in a place with snow.
Listen,
Call me crazy.
I don't entirely disagree, but I think it's just kind of like we talked about. It's always the same teams. They want to get more teams involved.
I get it.
I
I
think
get
the
it.
way to go might be you have it in the northern place and involve the southern
Maybe
teams.
hey,
I think that's maybe the way to go.
Chicago, Florida, in Chicago.
But that's my point. Chicago has it too much. Boston has it too
Okay.
much. Detroit has it too much. Here's
You know what you want to do? Edmonton, Calgary,
okay.
Winter Classic.
Here's what I am more angry at. I'm not angry that they're going to Florida or they played in California, whatever.
Okay.
I am more disappointed that the NHL has felt the need that it has to be in America only.
Doesn't give a shit about Canada anymore. Nothing ever happens in Canada.
Why wouldn't you want like winter? You talk about viewers, okay? If you have a winter classic in Canada, the viewership in Canada will be higher because it's not the U.S. viewership isn't going to change.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be mostly fans of those teams, and then there's going to be some hockey fans in northern states
And
that are going to watch no matter who the teams are. But in Canada, if you have it in Canada, not only are your viewers going to go up because it's in Canada, because there's going to be probably casual people who don't mind hockey, don't love it, don't hate it,
mm-hmm.
that'll watch, but they'll say, "Oh, it's in Canada. I'm going to watch it on TV." Not to mention, at the actual fucking game, people are going to come out.
even
I
if
don't think that's been an issue. Attendance hasn't been an issue, but it's big stadiums.
even if you want it in the States, Minnesota. Minnesota would be a good
I
location.
believe Minnesota's played in a few. I believe they've had one.
They've had one.
I'm not. I can't. They've at least played in some.
Something where it's would be fun. Utah. Utah would be
Yeah,
fucking
that's a
cool.
new team. Well, they did do Seattle last year,
I don't love Seattle.
but just like it's northern
It's
and
north.
it's new.
It's northern.
It's new teams. I think it was
Utah.
Vegas, Seattle, was it not?
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay,
So it's new teams.
fair.
But like,
I
okay,
want the environment.
wouldn't Toronto, Montreal be an unbelievable winter classic?
Yes, and
Toronto, Ottawa, you send
you
them to
think you're gonna
Calgary.
struggle to
Yeah.
sell high value
But
tickets
Toronto,
with them?
Montreal, these are the two most historic franchises in hockey.
You do Toronto, Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa, Ottawa, Montreal.
Yeah.
Any of those
Or even like
teams?
Vancouver against Seattle, Vancouver against one of the Alberta teams,
Yep.
Winnipeg against one of the Alberta teams,
Edmonton,
Winnipeg,
Vancouver.
Minnesota.
Yeah, yeah. Winnipeg's good call
Even
up.
if you have it in Minnesota,
And you have some picturesque places you can put. I know there's like probably liability stuff involved with like being out on an actual pond. Like I
Minnesota
understand
had
that's
the
probably not
Winter
possible.
Classic in 2022, so it wasn't that long ago.
Okay,
They
not
had
long
one.
ago.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like if it's not snowing at the Winter Classic, I'm just so disappointed. When you see people in short, it is a Winter Classic, not a Christmas in July
Well, I'm not
Classic.
sure about shorts. It's not that warm in Florida in January.
If you're a Canadian going down here wearing shorts, what the hell are we doing here?
Guess who Minnesota played in the Winter Classic that they hosted?
Tampa.
Fucking St. Louis, because St. Louis is in it every year.
Why? Okay, St. Louis.
I don't want to watch St. Louis or Chicago
No,
or Boston or
no.
Detroit anymore. We've seen it 90 million times. I don't need to watch Wrigley for the 15th time
I
or
think
Fenway for the 15th time.
when Toronto was it to Toronto, Detroit,
It was in Ann Arbor. Yeah.
and that's who was playing.
Yeah, Detroit,
Okay,
Toronto. Yeah, that's the one I went to, which was great. But
fantastic.
why do we need to go to the States to have a Canadian team involved?
Gary Bettman wants to grow the
I don't
sport
think
of
Montreal's.
hockey.
Oh, I think Montreal did do one in Boston, which is a good one. Montreal Boston's a good one.
Bad blood there.
That's a good one. That's a good one. What about Colorado?
Colorado would be cool.
They did have one. What was the one? There was on that lake or whatever, and I believe they played Vegas. I don't think it was a
in
winter.
Colorado.
It was. I don't think it was a winter classic. I think it was a stadium series.
If you give me just, if possible, if you can get the liability insurance, give me a hockey game on Lake Placid.
Well, no, it was Lake. Was it Lake?
Or you even mentioned Lake Louise.
Lake Louise would be cool, but they'll never do that.
Still needs to be safe.
Uh, Lake Tahoe, they did it. 2021, they did.
Did they really?
Yeah, I believe it was Stadium Series.
Shout out to my coworker who lives on Lake Tahoe.
Yeah, Lake Tahoe. They played Vegas because I remember it because that was the game where McKinnon got the puck in the neutral zone, was picking up pace, and Petrangelo was on the back end, and he saw him coming, and he was mic'd up, and he was like, it was the funny clip where he was like, "Oh shit," yeah, he's like, "Oh fuck."
That's a great location for it.
That's an unbelievable location.
You get a bunch of snow there. That's a good environment for it.
I'll throw one out there.
Okay.
Lake Tahoe,
Okay.
Colorado, Detroit.
Why Colorado, Detroit?
Are you fucking kidding me?
Just tell me. Why Colorado, Detroit?
Patty Waugh, for
Oh,
one thing.
Patrick Waugh.
You remember those 90s? The 90s, the early 2000s?
Lunatic?
Absolute barn burner of a rivalry. Anyway, yeah. So, yeah. Jack had his little rant. I think it should be in Canada more, or at
Should be
least in 12
snowing.
Canadian teams.
If it's not snowing, what's the point?
Yeah.
Let's have a warm beer.
Does, what's the thing again in Ottawa? The canal.
Rideau Canal?
Is there like a big ice rink there?
I don't know.
They should fucking build one. They should build one and play there.
There's probably a place to do it.
Yeah.
Rideau Canal itself is not massively
Yeah, true.
Well,
Probably not.
actually, you could do the stands on the side. I don't know.
Yeah, but
I don't know
you'd
if
have
it
to
has the
build
width.
you'd have to build the whole
That'd
thing.
be a lot of
Yeah,
investment.
it'd be
Probably
tough.
not worth it, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Basically, you just play at a CFL stadium.
Mhm.
It's that simple. Pretty much every team. Vancouver has a CFL team. Edmonton, Calgary, Winnipeg, Toronto,
Redbacks.
Ottawa, and Montreal. They all have, every Canadian NHL team has a CFL team.
Yep.
Every single one.
Winnipeg has one.
Winnipeg has one.
Toronto
Every
has
single
one.
one. That's all I'm saying, folks. Okay. You ready?
Yep.
All right. Jakob Dobish. I don't know how to pronounce it. He's been buzzing. He did play this game before we last recorded, but I did forget to put it in there. He played his first NHL game against the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers and got a shutout.
And look composed.
And he's looked solid since then. And I think here's the thing, okay? The Habs have been buzzing.
Mm-hmm.
And your prediction is looking pretty solid so far. As was my first prediction, which has already come true. We'll get to that. Primo struggled.
Yeah.
And it's been putting a lot of pressure on Montembeault.
Montembeault's been playing like 80% of the games.
Yeah, it's been a lot of pressure on him because they traded Jake Allen at the deadline last year. I know they had that three-way thing going last year in net.
Yeah.
And they traded Allen to New Jersey. And Primo hasn't been playing well.
No. Hasn't been playing
so it's
well
kind of
at
like
all.
we need to get Montembeault some help because he faces a lot of shots when he does play. He's playing too many games.
You're gonna burn out your goalie.
It's worked. He's looked good since. And I know he hasn't played a ton of games, maybe 3 or 4.
We watched him last night against Dallas for the third and overtime.
No, Montembeault played last night.
Is that not who you're referencing?
No, I was talking about Dobish.
Dobish is, so I've not seen like a full game where he's been playing, but I've been seeing the clips. He just looks so composed. For being a guy who did he come up from the AHL team?
Yeah.
For being a guy who came up, he looks so comfortable. Fluid, good. I believe he's a pretty big guy too. And he's on 3 straight wins since he got to the NHL.
Dobish has 3. Yeah, so 3. He's played 3 games. So
Carolina.
not a massive sample size, but
his save percentage against Carolina wasn't stellar, but they still won.
Yeah. So that's good. The Habs have got themselves in the mix.
It was tough seeing them last night in overtime. Seemingly have no idea how to make a pass and give pucks away or understand which jersey was green and which jersey was red. But overall, they've been playing way better. Cole Caulfield still, like, I think they were saying last night he's the first Hab on pace to hit 60 since like the 94, something like that. Um, I think it's good. I think it's good that they're getting more competitive because it's a franchise that's struggled
Yeah,
for a very long time now, similar to the Leafs. Well, I guess not similar. They did make the finals, but COVID year.
that was
That was kind of bullshit. Who cares?
what I really want to talk about with the Habs is my Calder Trophy pick in the preseason.
Mr.
Lane
Hudson?
Lane Hudson has been unbelievable.
The skating. It's
Yeah.
it feels like the new version of what defensemen are gonna have to be or
Yeah.
have started to really arrive.
So Lane Hudson, um, I don't want to downplay what Dustin Wolf has done in Calgary because he's been very good
Yeah.
on a team that is in the mix that probably shouldn't be in the mix.
Shouldn't be looking at him on
Yeah,
paper.
they
There's
shouldn't be in the mix.
no.
Um, but I think the way that Celebrini has played since he came back from injury, and Michkov has played for Philly, I think those probably Celebrini and Michkov are the two favorites, and Celebrini is probably the favorite.
Mhm.
Do we think Hudson's in the mix now? If Hudson plays like this from how he's been to the end of the season, is he in the mix for
I
the Calder?
I think there's a conversation. I don't think he wins, but I think it's worth the
Yeah,
acknowledgement to be like he should be on the roster
he should be in
card.
the mix.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, the Habs make it, and he keeps playing this way.
Defenseman, you got to
Now,
skate now.
not only is Hudson like buzzing around with the skating, and he's been good, and he's putting points up. His defensive game is really good
He's still a defenseman. He's not a pure offensive defenseman who, joins rushes and is just quick.
because he's not a big guy.
No.
Like Quinn Hughes struggled defensively when he first came in the league,
Yeah.
and even now, he's not like
Even now, you don't think of Quinn Hughes as,
as like
insanely
unbelievable
defensively.
defensive
Yeah.
player, right? He's not a Hudson's not a big guy,
Hudson
but he
uses
throws the body around a little bit. He's very good
he
defensively.
uses his speed for
Yeah,
positioning really
yeah,
well. And he's also just an intelligent player.
yeah,
You can see him read the play really, really strongly,
yeah,
defensively and offensively.
yeah.
He understands how the puck movement is going to go going into the defensive zone.
So yeah, just wanted to shout him out. Suzuki's been better. Caulfield kind of had to slow down a bit, but has picked it up again
Yeah.
in the past couple weeks. So yeah, the Habs look good. The Habs should probably try and hang on to Jake Evans. I think that's a really good guy to have in the room.
Yeah.
Guys like that. So they're in the mix, like you said they would be. Okay. Couple things. Evander Kane, who has been out the whole year after abdominal surgery before the season, he has had a little bit of a maintenance knee surgery and is expected to be out an additional 4 to 8 weeks. He did say he wanted to play this year. It's looking increasingly unlikely that that's going to happen.
Yeah. A
Um,
second surgery is
yeah, that's tough because the abdominal thing was already like a 4 to 5 month thing,
yeah.
which is probably going to be coming up on that in the next month or so.
Yeah.
But then attack on the knee stuff, maybe for the playoffs, maybe. And do you really?
Even that seems
Yeah.
unlikely.
So yeah, I just wanted to touch on that. We don't really need to talk much on that. Ottawa. Olmark has been out,
And that's hurt them.
and that's been a big reason they've struggled a little bit.
Yeah.
And my thing was when I made this note, it was a while ago, and I said, "Can Ottawa stay above water?" Now they're kind of staying above water because they're still in the mix, but they are struggling a little bit because the last time we talked about them, they were buzzing.
They pumped a team last night.
Olmark,
Who was it?
they beat Pittsburgh 5-0 last night. Yeah, but before that, like 4-0, 4-0 to Buffalo, 3-2 to Detroit, 4-0 St. Louis, 4-2 to Dallas. They beat Minnesota 3-1, but then lost to Winnipeg and Edmonton. That was kind of the start of it. That Edmonton game, they lost. Winnipeg, they lost. They beat Minnesota, but then it's been like 2 wins in what, 8 games?
Yeah.
9 games. They're down 1-0 to Dallas right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it hasn't looked great. Well, other
And
teams are
not
kind of
only down, they've only had 5 shots
yeah,
in
like
the first period.
the teams that are around them have been surging up and they've been going down.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it's been. And they desperately need Olmark back.
Yeah.
which is like when he was out earlier in the year, they struggled. Now they've been struggling again, and because when he was in, he was playing solid, and they were playing well.
He was playing unbelievable.
Yeah. Okay. Um, I'm gonna skip that. We're gonna go to Zach Leroux or Leroux, if you're French, has been suspended 3 games for his slew foot on Jared Spurgeon. I think the suspension is up by now because that was a while ago. I know you watched the video last night. I think it was pretty blatant slew foot.
Yeah.
I don't really think he has any complaints. I didn't really know this until I saw this. Apparently, he has a big suspension history. Now, this is his first NHL suspension. I believe he got suspended twice in the AHL, and he had been suspended 9 times in the QMJHL, including, I didn't tell you this, this is what I was keeping for you for live reaction. So he was suspended once while playing in the Q
Under Patrick Waugh.
for 10 games
Okay.
for jabbing a fan with his stick repeatedly, not just once. He was like through the glass and like jabbing through the glass this fan with his stick.
Was he in the penalty box?
No, he was. It was. I think he was going into the penalty box, but then somebody said something. So like through the
Where did he get his stick through?
like there's where the penalty box and the glass where the ice is. There's kind of like a little gap there, and he was like poking the guy, trying to jab the guy through the glass. You got 10 games for that.
That's the most Quebec Junior League thing ever.
9 suspensions in the queue. We're talking about the softest league here, which I mean could probably be more of a reason why because he's kind of a physical player and they're kind
Sure.
of soft, but still
Stabbing a fan?
jabbing the fan with your stick.
Where's he from?
I mean, I'm gonna assume
French,
He
yeah.
played in the queue, and his name's Lur, so I'm gonna assume he's
In
from
your French
Quebec.
immersion, that is the proper enunciation. Like we can kind of fact check that.
Full French, full French,
full
grade
French.
school. Yeah. So maybe don't look at it now, but
Okay.
go find it later. It's funny.
Okay.
Go find it, folks. It's funny.
Oh,
Okay. We'll go back to this. The last playoff spot in the East. It's a log jam right now.
there is so many teams that could make it
It's
happen.
a big log jam.
Boston's fallen out.
So Boston was in third in the Atlantic. They've fallen back out of that. Tampa has taken that over. They're actually tied on points, but Tampa has 5 games in hand.
Yeah.
So
I think they're gonna make a run.
I would say that Tampa was probably the third team in the Atlantic after Toronto and Florida. I think in the Metro, it's pretty much nailed in. Washington, New Jersey, and Carolina are the 3.
Yeah.
In the Metro spots. So honestly, it's not even just one wild card anymore. I think it's both. You've got here's the wild card situation. Now it's kind of the lead's kind of extended a little bit, but there was a point where like pretty much every team outside of the playoffs and the 2 teams in the wild cards were within like 4 points of each other.
That's
outside of one team.
That's good.
So right now it's Boston's on 47 points, Columbus on 46, Montreal and Pittsburgh on 44, Ottawa on 43, Detroit and the New York Rangers on 42, and Philly and the New York Islanders on 41. So that's 6 points from the first wild card to second last in the Eastern Conference. Buffalo is shit. They suck.
Yeah, Buffalo. Yeah,
Buffalo's done.
Buffalo sucks. My God.
I think the big feel-good story here is Columbus.
Yeah. Taking a season coming in with everything surrounding that
because
team.
even we said before the season, I said I thought they were going to be the worst team in the league.
Yeah.
And at least one of the worst teams.
Monahan is having a career year.
Monahan's been terrific. I think he's out right now. Marchenko's been good. This Voronkov guy has been really good.
Yeah.
Werenski's probably in the debate for the Norris.
Yeah.
I think Hughes is just too good, but he's in the mix.
Yeah.
As like one of the 3 finalists.
Yep.
Which is why he made Team USA as well.
Yep.
So Columbus is buzzing.
Yeah.
If they get goaltending a little bit better.
Merzlikins has been struggling. He hasn't been well.
Goaltending, yeah.
Yeah.
But they're in the playoff. They're in the second wild card right now.
That's so cool.
Back from Boston, so that's nice to see.
That's really cool.
Yeah. When you're looking at it, Boston is in the mix, but they're kind of falling back. They kind of had that bump with the new hire
Yeah.
behind the bench, but they're kind of falling back. Um, we'll get to them. If you had to pick two teams out of Boston, Columbus, Montreal, Pittsburgh, Ottawa, Detroit, New York squared, and Philly to make the playoffs, who would you pick right here, right now?
How long is Allmark out?
I don't know off the top of my head. I don't think it's like super long term.
Is it like week to week?
It says week to week with back injury. He is on IR at the moment.
I would want to say Ottawa.
If Olmark is healthy, Ottawa.
Yeah.
I would agree.
And then I think honestly, I'm gonna go with a Columbus or a Montreal. I'm going Canadian on this.
Okay. I don't think Columbus can sustain.
I think
this.
it'd be a big ask.
I
I
don't
think
think they
that's
could
more of like
sustain
a my heart would love
Yeah.
it.
Um,
I just don't see any. I don't think the Islanders are good enough. I don't think the Rangers are a catastrophe. Philly doesn't have the depth to I don't think pull it off.
I'll say
Pittsburgh's in shambles. Malkin's
Pittsburgh's been
injured.
better.
Malkin's injured
Pittsburgh's
again.
been better.
I don't know. I just no one else stood out.
I'll say
And I don't think Boston. I think Boston is crumbling, and I think they're going to continue to get worse.
I'll say Philly and both New York teams are done.
Yeah.
Neither of those teams are in. Montreal and Columbus are nice stories. I'm not gonna say they're gonna fall way off. I don't think they're getting in.
I hope Boston implodes on itself.
The four teams I would put in the mix would be Boston, Pittsburgh, Ottawa, and Detroit.
Detroit, I could see because Detroit seems to have gotten a lot of
Yeah.
energy over the last 2 weeks.
Here's what I'll say. I believe Boston and Pittsburgh, there's a little bit of experience in the room. So maybe they have the know how. Ottawa, if Olmark is healthy, is the best team out of the four.
Correct.
Detroit has been rejuvenated under the new coach, which we're going to get to. Right here, right now, Boston does have the advantage on points right now, but they have played 45 games. I am going to say Ottawa gets Olmark back. They stay above water enough until he comes back. They get him back and they get in. And I'm going to say Detroit because I love the coaching. And I think it's a changing of the guard. And I think it's Boston and Pittsburgh are done. Those have been the two, probably along with Washington, the dominant teams in the East over the last 15 years.
I think there is a brain-eating amoeba in Boston, and I hope it continues to eat their souls.
So I'll say Ottawa, Detroit. You're saying Ottawa, and you're gonna pick one.
Montreal.
Montreal. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, big log jam. I could still see Boston getting in. I could see Pittsburgh getting in.
I could see Pittsburgh getting in. I could see Sydney just refusing to give up.
Yeah.
I think Boston's just downhill the rest of the season.
I think there's six teams, like the two New Yorks and Philly. I think Philly has been pretty vocal about saying like we're not competing.
Yeah,
they've been kind of honest about it. I think the Islanders are in a rut, and I predicted that the Rangers would finish closer to the lottery than the playoffs. So I'm sticking with that, and it doesn't look like it's getting any better.
I think they're going to continue to deal. Their dealing is not done yet.
So I'll leave Columbus and Montreal in the mix, but I just don't. I think they're not ready yet.
I get it. Yeah.
Okay. Now we can get to. Do we want to go positive or do we want to go negative?
Negative.
Or we want to start negative?
I'm thinking about Boston. Let's go negative.
Okay. So two teams. We'll start with Boston.
You suck.
So the rumors in Boston are that the dressing room is in disarray, and the big thing is that Pasternak and Marchand have this beef. They don't want to play in the same line together. Now Marchand has come out in the media and said that that's bullshit. That's not true.
Okay.
He says that Pasternak is one of his best friends. That's what he said.
I don't think there's a whole lot of guys in the running for best friends with Marchand. I think he's a pretty unlikable son of a
if
bitch.
you're on his team.
I get it.
Yeah, if you're on his team. Um, I'm just telling you what the reports are, and then that's what Marchand said. They asked him about it. That's what he said.
He has to say that.
I'm not gonna sit here and say I completely disagree with Marshall. I think the pasta Marshall beef is probably over exaggerated,
Very likely.
but I don't.
Because they've just been playing with each other
Yeah,
for so long.
yeah. I think it's maybe of they're the two guys that are trying to hold people accountable
And
because they're the two guys. These are the two guys that run the team.
and they're probably frustrated.
They're probably pissed.
And if you're frustrated, you're not just gonna like neither one is the type who's gonna be like, that's my best friend. Like everyone's playing down.
Yeah, and I think
Pasta included.
I think the room is in disarray.
Yes.
I would agree with that.
And so I think it's just a natural like
Yeah.
bleeding between lines.
They're not used to losing.
No.
This could be the end.
I hope it is.
We hope it is. We wouldn't normally wish this much ill will on a team, but it's Boston.
It's Boston,
Yeah.
you disgusting people.
Yeah. And that's a part of the reason why in my predictions for 2025, I predicted Marchand's leaving in free agency.
Go lick the clouds, Marchand. Go fly to Aruba.
It's
I
not
don't
looking
know.
good, and I just don't see it turning around.
I
think if it was going to turn around, it would have turned around by now.
Yeah.
Swayman has been better than what he was, but he's still not up to his normal standards.
No.
There's something wrong there. I'm not saying with specifically with Swayman, I'm saying with the team. There's something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
There's something there. And listen, the roster, it's very well known that the roster has played a very large amount above its weight over the past few years.
So this may be a little bit of burnout.
Yeah, and like again, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it's bad. It's not. It is worse than what it was.
Yeah.
Minus Bergeron, minus Krejci, but it's kind of like Marshall's gotten older. You've lost those guys. You haven't really replaced them. You brought Lindholm and Zadorov in. It hasn't worked with either one of those guys. You don't have a
Lindholm's been a terrible sign.
They don't have a first line center. They don't even have a second line center.
No.
I would say that Lindholm, when Lindholm is at his best, is a second line center, but he hasn't been.
No.
So, like Charlie Coyle is not a first line center. Pavel Zacha is not a first line center. Not a first line center. Lars Lindholm is not a first line center.
No. The only reason I was holding Zacha in fantasy is because he plays with Pasternak. Yeah.
So Boston is in trouble here.
Yeah.
I think outside of McAvoy, the decor is in trouble. I don't know how you fix it. And here's what I think.
And I hope they sign every single one of them for as max cash as they can, and they suck for the next decade.
I think Don Sweeney's a shit GM.
It kind of seems that way. It kind of seems like, I don't know. I don't like the Swayman deal.
I don't disagree with going for it when you're good.
Yeah.
When you have the teams that are capable of winning the cup, which they have had in the past, you don't sit on draft picks and say, well, I want to save my 30th overall draft pick because I need... No. You're trying to win now. You got to make moves.
Stanley Cups.
I am not disagreeing with that. But if you look back at his drafting and their developing as an organization, it hasn't been great recently.
When you say recently, like how long?
Like
5 years?
Let's say post their last cup final. They lost to St. Louis in 2019 cup final.
So 5 years.
So 5 years. Ish. Not been good. And the ones that have kind of been solid, they're kind of left. Like the Brest was solid. They left.
He's having a good time in Vancouver.
Yeah. Well, kind of. We'll get to that. So I'm not really sure what you thought firing Montgomery was going to do when you keep the same guy who's built this kind of dumpster fire roster.
I don't know. I don't think firing Montgomery was the good move.
I think it was. I don't think it was. I think it was a good move, but I think it was kind of like they're not responding to this guy anymore.
They were going to try anything. It just, I don't know.
It's easier to fire the coach than it is to get rid of 25 players, right?
Yeah.
But I think the ownership needs to kind of step in here and say, okay, enough is enough. With Sweeney, this roster isn't there.
Yeah.
It's time to go. I know for a fact a lot of Bruins fans would agree with that.
It just feels like it has to be done.
Yeah.
Time for a new era.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else on
No.
Boston?
No.
You got your little hatred out?
I hate you, Boston.
Okay. The other team that's in
Mark Wahlberg, you absolutely suck.
Okay. We're not talking about people outside of hockey.
Okay.
I am tired of talking about this. Just like the players are tired of talking about it, just like everybody's tired of talking about it. Fucking Vancouver. I'm so sick of it. And it's not
Vancouver.
even Vancouver. It's two fucking people.
JT Miller
Okay?
and Mr. Pedersen.
So this thing hasn't gone away.
No.
And it's starting to come to the point where the rumors are that one of these two players will be dealt. They're exploring options. That's the
And from what I've
rumors.
heard, it's one, either, or both are very much on the table.
Yeah.
And honestly, I could see both happening.
I think that's bullshit on the player's part. I think the fact that you have let it get this out of hand is bullcrap.
Yeah. Are we not adults?
Grow the fuck up. Pedersen at his best has proven to be a very good two-way center.
Yep.
And a 100-point player.
Yep. Found good chemistry.
Miller at his best has proven to be a very good goal scorer and a good playoff performer.
Mm-hmm.
Both very good. Excuse me. Both very good on the power play. You were one game away from the Western Conference final last year. You were the best team in your division last year.
Uh-huh.
You have the coach that's implemented a terrific structure. When Demko is healthy, you have a goalie that can win the cup.
Even when Demko isn't healthy.
Yeah, Lankkonen's been good.
Yeah.
Hronek and Hughes has been one of the best pairs in the NHL over the past year and a half. I know that
Hronek isn't, but he's skating,
Yeah.
I think.
I think he's on his way back, and Hughes just came back from his injury, and Hughes is one of the best two defensemen on earth.
Yep.
And you have some solid secondary guys like Besser, like Garland.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason this team isn't working is because your two best forwards are being prima donna fucks.
The sympathy of we're frustrated because we're not playing well can only last for like a little bit. If you don't sort your shit out, it's just childish.
What it tells me, and we've kind of touched on it, but what it tells me that when JT Miller went off on his hiatus, that Pedersen played really well while Miller was out, and then immediately started shitting the bed
When he
as soon
came
as
back.
Miller came back. That's bullcrap. Put your fucking big boy pants on. Grow the fuck up. And we have discussed this. Which one would we keep? I think we both agreed we'd probably prefer to keep Miller in a pure player on player standpoint. Miller's probably going to be better for you in the playoffs. But if you look at the situation, you've invested in Pedersen long term.
And Miller's older.
Pedersen's younger.
Yeah.
By a pretty decent amount.
Yeah.
Like 5 years.
Yeah.
So it's kind of what do you do? The rumor out there is that the Rangers offered Zibanejad for Miller.
You'd be taking a big loss.
I think that would
that
be stupid.
sucks.
Vancouver would not do that.
On what planet does that
Vancouver
make sense?
said no, and it's pretty obvious. But the fact that it's out there and people know, and like if you rewind 2 years, Zibanejad was a very good player.
Yeah.
So teams are shopping.
They're throwing some options.
And teams know that Vancouver's looking to maybe deal one of them, which kind of puts Vancouver to disadvantage because now there's teams. Now maybe teams are like, well, if you want to get one of these guys, we don't have to pay as much for them.
Yeah.
I think Pedersen's at his best is a top end NHLer.
Correct.
But just the consistency is not there.
I want to see them both get dealt to new random teams and then play each other.
No, what I want to see
I'd love that.
No, this is what I want to see.
Oh, okay. You want to have
because I like the Vancouver Canucks.
You want a resolution here.
I want a resolution.
Okay.
The Vancouver Canucks are probably my second favorite hockey team. Grow the fuck up. Both of you, put your fucking pride away. It's time to win. Don't waste Quinn Hughes.
Yeah.
When Demko is healthy, you got to take advantage. Don't waste that. Don't waste fucking Kevin Lankinen playing this well
Mm-hmm.
when Demko has been out. Don't waste. Besser isn't getting younger. Guys across the lineup aren't getting younger. You brought DeBrusk in because you want to be good now. He's a playoff guy.
Yeah.
On paper, Pedersen would be the one that you would keep. But on a pure, what I see on the ice, when it comes down to winning, I would rather keep Miller.
Yeah. It has been when they signed Pedersen last year because it was a
Yeah.
midseason signing. He didn't look good after.
He was unbelievable up until the point they signed him. He's been shit ever since.
Yeah.
Other than the stretch that Miller was out, which is bullshit.
So then it becomes, what's the issue, boys?
What is the problem? Grow the fuck up.
Lock each other,
Yeah.
go to a cottage, put the cell phones away,
Yeah.
have an arbiter,
Here's what I
talk
say.
it out.
Are the Canucks looking back a couple years back when they weren't having too much success, and it was like I think right before Taka got hired? Do they maybe regret trading Bo Horvat a little bit?
I think Horvat regrets being traded.
Well, at the time, Vancouver didn't look like they were going in a positive direction, and the Islanders were kind of a fringe playoff team.
Yeah.
So at the time, it was kind of like it's not really working. But in hindsight, because Horvat probably would have fit Tocchet's system very well.
Yeah, I would have.
A very good two-way player. He's physical. And maybe a leader because yes, Hughes is the captain and Hughes should be the captain.
There can be multiple leaders in
But
a room.
you don't have to wear leather to be a leader.
People lead in different
And
ways.
Hughes is young.
Yep.
And that's just kind of the way the league has gone. The guys are getting captaincies a lot younger because the league is getting a lot younger. But you can have a guy in there.
Nylander doesn't have an A.
Just look at the Leafs. Tavares got stripped of the captaincy. But Tavares is still a leader in the room. You could have said to Horvat, we want to go a different direction. Hughes is the guy for the future. We want him to take the seat. But you're still a guy in the room here.
Nylander doesn't have a letter on his jersey.
No.
He's still holding his teammates accountable
Exactly.
for what the goal is.
So maybe look back on that. And it's maybe that could be a guy, right? That could be there. That could be like not only take a little bit of the on the ice stuff, take the pressure off of both of those guys a little bit, especially Pedersen.
Yeah.
But then the off ice stuff, maybe that's a resolution. Maybe a guy who can bring a resolution.
On tapes.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you think they're in trouble?
The fact that it's lasted this long, yeah. If you can't sort this out, this has been because this is a thing. Once it becomes public, it's been going on for a little while.
It was a big issue when Talkie got hired.
And so the fact that it's still here, you haven't sorted it out, you're both getting paid millions. You were a great team last year. You have the capability. The parts are there. What's the beef? What genuinely? What is the issue here?
Who knows?
Somebody fooling around with someone else's wife? Like, what is it?
I don't know.
Because it's insane. And it's frustrating for every other person in the room. You know what's the most frustrating for? Frustrating for some fourth line guys who are coming in day out, trying to bang up some bodies, trying to do their best. And your superstars are busy having hissy fits because they can't get along. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. I think Tocchet kind of came in and did a really good job because when Vancouver was winning, it didn't seem to be a problem.
Oh.
But now it's kind of like maybe like, okay, we thought this was behind us, but now that they were not winning and we're kind of struggling a little bit, maybe not like terrible, but they're still not what they were last year. Or it's now maybe it's a little bit guys are back to, oh, I'm not getting along. I don't like this guy anymore.
And this is the thing. The death sentence, the final nail will be wet if we find out. If we find out what the actual reason is, that means someone leaked it. That means someone talked about it because they wanted to just take this one step further. The moment we sign out, when we find out, that's when I give up hope on them.
I think it just kind of comes down to I think it's JT Miller's an intense guy, and I think he's holding Pettersson accountable for some play, especially in the playoffs, but even just since signing the deal.
Fine,
I
but
think
it,
that's
but
the issue. That's
then,
just what I'm
but then,
my
if you're JT Miller, if he's not responding to that type of feedback,
yeah.
guess that you have to change. You tried the tough love approach. If that is genuinely it, if it's that simple, you tried the tough love approach. At some point, you have to then be humble because what you did just didn't work, and it's continuing to not work,
Here's what I'll say.
and you're just destroying a superstar.
I would rather you say something and hold somebody accountable and them hate me than say nothing and the player just keeps
No,
coasting through.
agreed. If it gets the positive response, if the person listens and it works. If it doesn't work and you continue to just do what something that the person isn't responding to, then you are just as much as fault because you're now playing them down. I agree. Hold players accountable. On board with that. The delivery of the message and how that's being communicated, who knows where it's going wrong? Because I don't think it's just tonality. Maybe it's what he's calling. Who knows? But as you continue to hark on the guy, as you continue to like whatever you're trying to fix with Pettersson, because I think he needs to be fixed because he's not playing well. And you're right. JT Miller came back and suddenly you jumped off a cliff
Yeah,
again. That is inexcusable because you
yeah,
just proved you could do it. So what is it about? Is
yeah.
it his literally his presence? Do we need the blinders on so you can't see each other? What is it?
I think it's just is Miller have fault in this? Yes. If what we're saying is true, does Miller have fault in this? Yes. But Miller is just the one that happens to be brave enough to say something. Because there's going to be guys in the lineup that are younger guys that
Hmm.
don't have a prominent role in the NHL.
Sure.
Are they going to sit there and tell the guy that can put up 100 points in the season, well, what the fuck are you doing? Some 20-year-old brat going to say that? No.
No. But it becomes okay if you're going up to Pedersen being like you weren't good enough tonight every single night, that's if that isn't getting the response, if the person that you're delivering that to doesn't respond positively to that, because there's some people who are gonna be like, you're right, I'm gonna meet the challenge and I'm gonna fire up next game. That's fantastic. Then that's a perfect approach.
Yeah.
But if that person's response is they just get more and more down on themselves, then you need to change it up and be like, hey, we need to work on this. This was something you did really good at. It is the corporate donut level of feedback, or sorry, hamburger feedback. Positive, bad, positive. Hey, you really liked what you did. We need to work on this. Like, there's nothing wrong with being objective and being direct. Nothing wrong with that. But if he's responding this poorly to it, then you just continuing to double down isn't improving anything. Then JT Miller, regardless of your best intentions of what you're trying to get out of the guy, it's not working. Hold him accountable, great. But the methodology and delivery of how you're holding accountability matters just as much as the accountability itself. And I think that's probably a lost in translation thing for him if that is exactly what's going on.
This is pro sports.
Yep. And I know where you're gonna go with it. Doesn't matter.
It does.
It doesn't matter
It does.
because the response is all that matters. The outcome is all that
But
matters.
this is my point.
If you signed a baby
This is
for
my
how many
point.
millions of
This is my
dollars?
point.
Go
If
ahead.
you can't, it's not about the response. You don't have to like what he's saying to you. You don't have to like it.
No, you don't have to like, but it has to be effective.
You are getting paid $11.5 million a year.
Uh-huh.
You're paid like the best player on the team because you should be. At least the best forward.
Or at least that's what the team has determined. The
Yeah.
management has determined that.
You have played well enough to get that contract,
Mm-hmm.
but you're not playing up to it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of the team knows that. And JT Miller has a prominent enough role to go in and say something. He has enough experience in the league to go in and say something. He's probably a direct guy. And maybe it's a little too harsh. Okay. But based on the fact that this is Elias Pettersson's reaction to this, shows me that he isn't ready to win a cup. And I'm not sure he ever will be.
And I'll side with you here. Pedersen needs to be an adult here.
Yeah.
Just because if it is, again, and this is all predicated on, this is exactly what the crux of the issue is.
Yeah.
Just because you don't like what's being heard doesn't mean you get to throw a tantrum. I understand that.
Yeah.
I think both guys are such at fault because the response from Pedersen is completely inappropriate. JT Miller, if you're just continuing to do something and the outcome is absolutely what matters, the outcome is he playing better? Some guy, unfortunately in the world, some people, they need to be treated like babies. They need to be treated with cotton gloves on. And if you do anything else, they will collapse.
If we're talking like kids here, different story. I agree with you.
They're pro hockey players. They are children.
But you're a grown ass man.
They're players who are playing professional sports, who are getting paid millions of dollars. How much adversity have you had to go through?
You think that when Rick Tocchet played hockey, that if some guy said to him, "You're being a bitch, grow up, play hard. This is the fucking playoffs.
Right.
You're getting paid this much money, and this is how you play." You think Rick Tocchet would go hide in his corner? And he's being mean to me. No. Rick Tocchet might go fight the guy who says that to him, which would be much more, which I would like a lot better.
But it's a completely different culture.
Instead of being all poopy pants, oh, I hate him, I don't want to play with him. Grow the fuck up. Rick Tocchet would either go punch that guy's face in or go out the next game, throw his body around and punch somebody else's face in and say, "You're fucking wrong."
I think the proper culture is one of honesty, accountability, and directness. I think that is unequivocally the best culture to form, because it means you can have difficult conversations and no one's taking it super personally. Yeah. I agree with that. If I'm JT Miller, though, if this is the response, it's, do you want to win this year or not? If you need to have a talk with management,
they're not winning this year.
No, I agree. But if you, at the end of the year, you need to go have a talk with management and be like, this guy doesn't fit with what we're trying to do here. Yeah. This guy doesn't take feedback. You need to ship him, or we got to blow this up.
I think
that's fair
at this point.
But that's not happening during the season.
Yeah, I think at this point it's kind of like, okay, it's gotten to this point, and I think it's kind of gone this way now. I don't think there's much communication between the two if it is this bad. So I think at this point it's just like, leave it to Tocchet.
At the end of the day, it's on him. It's your job to set the tone.
Do we really? I don't think Tocchet has an issue telling people what he thinks.
No, I don't think so. Something tells me no.
Something tells me that. Okay, so I think that's just kind of what it's gonna have to be, and maybe they get over it, and it's just kind of like, okay, like, I don't have to like you, but if we're gonna play on the same team together, and we want to be a contender, and we got to put our fucking feelings aside and grow the fuck up. And you can see where the debate has kind of gone. Jack has kind of gone in the Pedersen direction, and I've gone in the Miller direction.
It's not even in the one or the other. It's the, what outcome do you want?
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to.
Okay. That topic has been discussed at nauseum by everyone.
Yeah, at this point, we're beating a dead horse.
Yeah. Unless a trade comes through or like something gets released, I think we're done with this topic.
Yeah.
Because it's just going to keep happening. They're just going to keep talking about it.
It's the same talking points.
Yeah. So it's kind of come to the head where it's like they're saying that either one of the players could get traded.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, this is a talking point. Where do we go from here? Is Vancouver going to make the playoffs this year?
I think so. I think so. They still make the playoffs. I don't think they go far in the playoffs. I think they still make the playoffs. So
I think they'll still get in. Yeah. Okay. Let's get a little more positive.
Positive time.
We've talked about the Habs a little bit. Let's go out west.
Okay.
Colorado, Vegas, and Dallas. If you started the season, at the start of the season, those three teams, along with Edmonton, would probably be the four teams that you would say are the favorites to come out of the West.
Mm-hmm.
I think most people would agree. Maybe not Vegas because people are stupid, but some of us know that Vegas is still good.
Mm-hmm.
And some people think that Nashville is good. But here anyway. So
We all make mistakes.
Dallas back up because Dallas kind of fell down to the wild card spots.
Yeah, Sagan getting injured hurt them a lot. Robertson being pretty quiet hurts
Yeah,
them a
I
lot.
think it's just kind of like guys aren't producing as much.
Yeah.
And Dallas is the type of team that they don't need one player to put up 100 points.
No,
They
they're
just
they're
their
so they're
lineup is
so
so deep.
deep. Yeah.
So
Oh,
like they're kind of
jinx.
coming back. And then the Avs have gotten some goaltending out of Blackwood, and now that you're seeing that because he's playing well, you can
Is
see
he
the
hurt?
Avs. No, the other
Wedgwood
the
is?
Wedgwood is. I think he just came back today
Okay.
or last night, whatever it was. So you can see them. They're on a little bit of a heater. They they lost to Winnipeg last night, but before that, I think they were on like yeah, they had a 6 game winning streak, and it's kind of been win loss since then.
Okay.
Dallas, yeah, Dallas is on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 game win streak, and it's currently 2-2 with Ottawa, so it could be 8. And Vegas has lost 2, but before that, it was like 6 in a row and like 9 wins in their last 10.
Okay.
So those are probably the 3, and Edmonton that are the dangerous teams in the West
Mm-hmm.
come playoff time,
Mm-hmm.
and they're starting to pick it up. So Dallas, I didn't really have much else to say. I just wanted to touch on them. Just they're on a heater.
Okay.
Colorado is playing well. Shut out Blackwood. I think Blackwood's a big reason why, because I don't think the team out was playing terrifically terrible before.
Yeah.
I think they don't need outstanding goaltending, just steady.
Yeah. You said that before.
Yeah.
It's just true.
And then Vegas, I mean Vegas has been good all year, but then they just kind of went on that really good run, and they're kind of catching up to Winnipeg, I believe. Winnipeg has 61, Vegas has 59. So Winnipeg has slowed down from their start, which was kind of inevitable because you're not going to sustain that all year.
Okay.
And Vegas has 2 games in hand. So I think there's a very good opportunity for Vegas to win the West and get the highest seed in the West.
Yeah, you could see it happening, especially with Winnipeg regressing.
And Minnesota could be in trouble because of Dallas and Colorado are coming. And if Kaprizov's out long term because he's still not back yet, they did say he resumed skating, but there's still no timeline.
Yeah.
Are they able to keep that momentum going enough to keep them above those 2 teams
Yeah.
to avoid getting in a wild card spot? Right. But Vegas on a heater, they're a very good team.
People are gonna wake up real quick to the
Tra-
fact of they're really
the
good.
trades are coming. We know what this means.
We'll speculate. Okay, we should do a list next week for
We know what this
who does
means.
Vegas go for?
I think maybe we kind of push that into February, more closer to the deadline.
Okay.
We look at that stuff closer to the deadline. But those 3 teams, just kind of want to touch on them. They're on big runs, especially Colorado and Dallas. Didn't have the best of starts, and they've been a lot better.
Okay.
The last team we want to touch on that's on here, we kind of mentioned them with the Eastern Conference logjam, the Wings. Their last loss was the game we went to,
I think they won today too.
and they haven't lost since.
So
They won 3-0 today. Or they were up 5 when I last saw it today.
they won today.
Yeah.
I think they even ended at 6, maybe.
Yeah. So
Yeah, 6-2.
it seems like McClellan is the right man for the job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think McClellan, because when you look at it, the Wings, all the coaches that the Wings have hired have been kind of like they seem like Stevie Y guys. They're
Yeah.
all like hard nosed guys. But I think McClellan brings the structure with it.
Yeah.
And I think he has a lot of respect around the league. You have guys like Kane that played for those good Chicago teams that played against those really good San Jose teams throughout the years. So I think there's a lot of respect there.
Yeah.
Larkin's been around a long time, so I think he's probably played against McClellan teams a lot, even if they were in the West. So I think it's just kind of like a realization of like, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. Yeah, there was a lot of criticism when he was in LA for the system. It was boring, blah blah blah. But it's the reason they got into the playoffs. Let's
Yeah.
be honest.
Yeah.
As much as they did
Yeah.
with the personnel they had, right? Obviously, they needed a little bit of a change because it was kind of getting ho hum, same thing every year. But you can't doubt his track record. He's been very good as an NHL coach.
And the proof's there, both
Yeah.
history and
So were
recency.
they 6-1, 7-1 since he's been hired?
Yeah.
Something like that. Their only loss was his first game. They got pumped, and basically his message was, "You guys have played hockey your whole lives. You know how to play. What are we doing here?"
There's even interviews with the players being like, this
Yeah,
has been really refreshing
yeah,
for us.
yeah. So that's good for the Wings. Um, and I'm gonna say they make the playoffs.
I'd like that. Yeah.
I think they get in. Did you see Markstrom throw an absolute tantrum after they lost to San Jose a couple? I don't know if it was this past week or the week before.
Yeah.
That was funny. I just wanted
Just
to know
wanted
if
to
you
put
saw
that
that
in
or
there.
not. Oh yeah, that was funny. Big tantrum. Love goalie tantrums. Those are the best.
Yeah.
Speaking of goalies, Connor Hellebuck, he's the second goalie this season to reach 300 career wins after Vasilevsky, and he's the third fastest after Vasilevsky, and I believe it was Jacques Plante that Vasilevsky passed.
Congratulations.
So good for Hellebuck. Pretty crazy, like 300 wins, third fastest, and it's not like Winnipeg's been unreal
No.
throughout his whole time there.
No.
So good for him.
Impressive.
A couple more milestones, and listen. I know I'm beating a dead horse here.
Go.
We talk about this guy every week, but he gives us a reason to talk about him every single week.
Oh, no.
Sidney Crosby.
Oh, the golden boy.
So two things. So Sidney Crosby has passed Patrice Bergeron for the most face-off wins of all time since they've started keeping track of the stat. One of the intangibles,
That a boy, Sid.
Sid.
Just part of what makes you
People
amazing.
just don't realize how important face-offs are too.
Gets you possession.
Yeah.
Starts the play.
And then after that, Sid passed Joe Sakic for ninth on the all-time points list.
Yeah.
So he's moving up to top 10.
Well done.
So good for Sid.
Some honorable
And
names
that's
in
it.
there.
Those are two very respected players
Yeah.
throughout the league. So since Ovi's been back, he's been on a heater. And he might make my prediction of he ties the record but doesn't beat it. He might make that look stupid. He might demolish it this season, the way he's scoring right now.
What's his pace? What does he need? Live count. Ovi.
Let's see.
It's amazing to just watch him score goals. It's just fun.
We just thought. So 873 he's at. So he is 21 goals away from tying him.
He
22.
might demolish
He
it.
could do it
He could
easily.
easily do it.
Yeah, if he keeps scoring like he has been since he's been back,
Playoffs in April,
it's beginning of January. You still have half the season
middle
left.
of January.
But they're just like passing the halfway point right now
Yeah.
of like the NHL schedule. That's everyone's around like 41, 42, 43 games. And it's an 82 game schedule. So he's got half the season
To score.
to
So he needs a
score
goal every other game, roughly.
pretty much half a goal a game.
Ovi, do it. Tie.
So
Make you come back one more
he could make me
season.
look stupid, but
Okay.
we'll see. Shout out to Draisaitl. He had a big 14 game point streak. It just ended the other night, but I think he then went back and scored two the next night after that. I think he's probably the runaway Rocket Richard winner this year. It's
That's an
looking that way.
unbelievable point streak.
Yeah. So he has been the main man in Edmonton this year. If you
Yeah.
looking at it, really looking at it. I don't know what he is now at 31 goals, and he has pulled away because now he is 6 up on Scheifele, Reinhardt, Rantanen, and Point are all on 25. And Nylander's 24, Kaprizov, Connor,
What's
Caulfield,
Konechny
23.
at? 25?
No, Konechny's got 20.
20.
So he's 6 up. So he's running away with it a little bit.
Nice.
And he is second, 5 points back of McKinnon for points. Second in points. Just a shout out to Draisaitl. I know we're running long. So a couple more things. Obviously, with the stuff going on in LA, there was a game between Calgary and LA
Yeah.
that was postponed this week
Yeah.
due to wildfires, which is a disaster.
Yeah.
So
Hope
hopefully,
everyone's okay.
yeah, I hope everyone's all right down in LA. Uh, that's the second time this year that a game has been postponed because of natural disaster
Yeah.
causes with the hurricane in Tampa at the
Yeah.
beginning of the season.
It's really sad.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna leave this one for next week because it's not really a point and we're running a little long. It's not something we really need to discuss right now, which is kind of like a throw it out there thing.
Yeah.
We'll leave that for next week. Cutter Gauthiers returned to Philly. They booed the shit out of him, and the player he got traded for scored a goal. I believe Philly won pretty comfortably last night.
I think they did really well. If I recall.
Philly won 6-0.
Yeah.
And Drysdale was one of the players he got traded for, and he scored. So
Pumped.
yeah. So just wild that was like he's out there putting his balls on the table like that, and then he has not been terrific in his rookie year. I know it's not a great team, but
Anaheim sucks, but
yeah,
still. And to get booed and then
yeah,
guy you got traded for scored on.
yeah,
That's fun.
that's funny. Okay, last uh, NHL note. I didn't tell you this. Is one of the things I didn't tell you. So Sens owner Michael Anlauer, who they're talking about building a new arena, he's been talking about it a lot. He is the now former owner of the OHL's Brantford Bulldogs. He has sold the team to current NHLer Zach Hyman.
Are you serious?
Yeah, dead serious.
Why, Zach? Is this your retirement plan? Okay.
Interesting.
Sure. Zach, good luck to you, buddy.
Interesting. Yeah.
You're an active NHLer, but
Yeah.
okay.
Interesting. But yeah, it's been done before.
So we got a little cash.
Yeah,
Got a little cash in hand.
I believe it was Zach Hyman and family, they said. And I know that Hyman comes from a little bit of money because
Okay.
people have made fun of him for it in the past. So there's a little bit of money there.
I wish I did
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Okay. The World Juniors. Let's get into it. I know we're running along,
I
folks,
know.
but it's been 2 weeks, so you kind of have like a double episode here. So we'll start on Canada. So Canada played the U.S. on New Year's Eve. The U.S. ended up winning the game. We were critical. I honestly didn't think that Canada played that horrible against the U.S. They took a lot of stupid penalties.
It was,
and they couldn't score.
The exclamation point was, how many undisciplined penalties do you want to continuously take? Because it's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. So yeah, that was kind of the thing there. The U.S. took over a little bit based off of that. Honestly, the second period, I think like both teams were pretty much on the power play the whole period, but nobody really scored much. And then the U.S. kind of pulled away in the third.
Yeah.
So after the game, Lane Hutson's little brother, Cole Hutson, who is actually the first defenseman ever to win the outright scoring title, like points, at a World Junior, like sole first place. He said after the Canada game that beating Canada in Canada was a better feeling than winning a gold medal. What are your thoughts on that?
It's disgusting.
That's just the stupidest thing
stupid.
I've ever heard.
It's insane. I
that's
hate
insanity.
it.
That's just like a loser mentality.
No response. I'm not going to justify it with a response.
Just stupid. Okay, we can go to the Czech game. They played the Czechs in the quarterfinal. Spoiler alert, I'm sure everybody already knows this. They lost.
Yeah.
They had a big comeback, tied the game. Czechs got a power play late in the third and won the game. I think the biggest talking point from the game was how bad the refereeing was. 2 kneeing calls, and especially the first one was an absolute dog shit call.
Yep.
Bodwin gets kicked out of the game. They get a 5-minute power play, which Canada actually scores shorthanded on, but then lets in a goal as well. It couldn't have been more blatant shoulder contact. And then there wasn't really knee contact. It was like thigh on
Yeah,
thigh.
yeah. Reffing overall just sucked. It was extremely
It's
soft.
a typical IIHF tournament.
And then
Yeah.
to Canada tied it up, and
And then another bullshit kneeing call. Yeah.
to just suck the life out of the game immediately there.
Yeah.
It was just, I don't know. It's just like, are you really gonna make this call at this point in the game?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Like you want the reffing to be a focal part of the game then.
Yeah.
You want the referees
It ruined
to
the
be
game.
yeah, it did. They're not playing hockey.
Don't get me wrong. Canada didn't play particularly well.
No.
I don't think they deserve to go far in this tournament.
They got momentum in the
Yeah.
third period. Their
Yeah.
third period was,
They
oh my
played very
gosh,
well
we
in the third.
discovered
That
how
was
to
their
play
best period
hockey
of the
again.
tournament.
Yes.
Yeah, by far. Well, that first couple periods against Finland were good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but other than that,
Yeah.
okay. So yeah, basically Canada was terrible at this tournament. They couldn't score goals,
Undisciplined, sucked.
and basically part of the reason why is not sure who decided to pick this team, but it was some horrible choices because you left off a ton of players like Misa, Seneki, Yakimchuk, Parik, and Crystal. Those are just some names that they left off. Uh, so if you go on HockeyDB, you can look up some stats a little bit from the players I just named. They're very high in CHL scoring. I know some of them are under 18 and blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. You pick the best players.
Yeah.
Michael Misa has 70 points in 36 games so far this year
Oh my
for
god.
Saginaw. Seneki was the third overall pick in the draft last year, and I know he's kind of lighting it up too. I think he plays in the WHL. No, he plays for Oshawa. 61 points in 34 games, and he's just turned 18. Um, Parik, I believe, was one of the best players probably the best player at the Mem Cup last year, and like 96 points as a defenseman last year.
Pretty good.
Not sure he doesn't make the team,
That's pretty good.
and he's not like he's 18. Like,
And goal scoring was an issue.
yeah. Crystal, I believe, leads the WHL in points right now, and he's a defenseman. If I read that correctly,
Left off the team.
left off the team. He has 67 points in 30 games between Kelowna and Spokane this year. He's a defenseman. And the last guy was
Hockey Canada needs to take a look at what the hell they were thinking and do a little reflection here.
Yakimchuk was the last guy. Let's see what he's got. Carter Yakimchuk for the Calgary Hitmen, 34 points, 31 games, 71 points in 66 last year, and he's a defenseman. And he's not young. He was the seventh pick in the draft last year.
Yeah.
So,
a little questionable in terms of some choices personnel. Here.
I know the injury to Schaefer was tough. That was a big one in the Latvia game.
Yeah.
He was probably our best defenseman. So missing him was big. Martone had a tough tournament. He got scratched one game, came back or I think he got scratched for the U.S. game and came back for the Czech game. He ended up scoring one of the goals to get us back in it. He was probably one of the better forwards. Thought that's saying a lot, but I think he should have been in the lineup. Brandon Yeager, or is it Brandon or Braden, whatever it was by far Canada's best player against the Czechs and probably one of their best players at the tournament. His feet were always moving, even when he wasn't scoring, he was making things happen. And I believe he was one of the three they chose as Canada's players of the tournament. Gavin McKenna showed tons of promise. You can see the talent level is there.
Yeah.
A little bit naive defensively at some points.
He's 17.
He's young. There's some things that look good offensively. He's young. He'll get there. Carter George in net. I thought he was by far Canada's best player.
One of the only redeeming factors on by far Canada's
best player. And then the last player was Easton Cowan, which we wanted to touch on a little bit because he's a Leafs prospect.
Small, undisciplined, ridiculous.
Now here's the thing, okay? So what we've seen, I don't watch the London Knights, okay?
Yeah.
What we've seen from him at the World Juniors and with the Leafs in preseason, I don't. He's young, so we got to give him time. And it's not like he was like a top 10 pick. He was first round, late first round pick.
Right.
So you got to give him a little bit of time. From what I've seen, he's maybe a little timid. He's not ready for the NHL. Maybe a little timid, maybe a little intimidated, right? For the NHL level.
But this wasn't the NHL
This
level.
wasn't the NHL level. I know it's the best junior level, but you would still think a player that he's still a first round pick. You think a player like that, maybe, okay, I want to take this tournament over. And it wasn't that I thought he was intimidated in this tournament. I just didn't think he played well.
It was almost like a little insulting being like, I'm already signed. I don't really give a shit.
Yeah. And based on what people say, how he plays for London, people say he buzzes around and he hits on top of the scoring.
Didn't see that.
That's what people say.
Didn't see
That's what
that.
I've heard for how he plays for London. So I was a little surprised.
Was it the coaching? Was it the systems? Was he
Yeah,
asked not to do certain
I
things?
think the coaching was a big thing. I think the coaching was a struggle. Not necessarily just with Cowan, I think with the whole team.
Yeah.
And then leaving off the players they left off.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just didn't work.
No.
It was a very bad tournament for Canada. Any other thoughts?
No, just disappointing overall.
Couple more things at the World Juniors. Very good run by Latvia.
Yeah.
They barely lost in the quarterfinal to, I believe it was Sweden, or was it Finland? No, they were. Finland was in our group, so it would have been Sweden. Quarterfinal, they lost to Sweden 3-2, so they were in it, and I believe they lost a round robin game. It was tight. They beat Germany in overtime, and they beat Canada in the shootout. So it's a good tournament for Latvia, and maybe exposes the country a little bit more to hockey.
A little bit more respect on their
Yeah,
name.
it's not a big. It's a very small country.
Yeah.
Tiny country.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to shout out the player that I thought was very good that outside of the U.S. was Axel Sandin Pellikka for Sweden.
Yes.
I believe this was his third World Juniors. He's a wings pick. He's going to be a stud.
Yeah. I
He's gonna be a
agreed.
stud.
Probably one of the more standout
Yeah.
of the tournament.
Yeah. The middle round, the semifinals and final, barn burner.
Yeah.
Finland,
Sweden, Finland, yeah.
unbelievable game. Finland wins in overtime. The U.S., I believe, was down to the Czechs. No,
And then
it was 1-1.
scraped out a win.
And then they kind of took over a little bit in the third. And then the bronze medal game, Czech Sweden went to a shootout, and it was like a 14 round
rounds.
shootout. The Czechs end up pulling it out. I think there was only so in the World Juniors, it's a 5 round shootout, not a 3 round shootout like the NHL. So I believe both teams had 1 goal in the 5 rounds. And then after the 5 rounds, you can repeat shooters.
Yeah.
After that, I think they didn't score until like the 10th round or 11th round or something. And then both teams scored in the same round. And then they kept going. And then finally the Czechs ended up winning.
Edged it
after
out.
like the 14th or 15th round or something.
That's exciting.
And then the U.S. Finland didn't go away. Finland beat the U.S. in the round robin. And Finland was up 3-1 in this game. But the U.S. came back and then ended up winning in overtime, which the player that scored in overtime, Stiga, I believe they said that was his first shot of the whole tournament.
Seriously?
And he scored in overtime, the game winner to win the gold medal.
That's going to feel good.
Yeah, so that's going to feel good. You can touch on the U.S. a little bit. Ryan Leonard wins MVP. He's a Washington pick. He kind of discussed he might go to the NHL before this season. He ended up staying in college. I think it's safe to say he's signing in Washington once his college season is over to end the season there. Yeah. And that could give the Caps a little bit of a bump in the playoffs.
Even more of a bump.
Yeah, as they've already been terrific.
Yeah.
So, and he's going to be he's NHL ready.
Yeah.
He's going to be a very good NHLer.
Agreed.
Yeah. And I think he'll go there after the season. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah.
He won, obviously, MVP. And then him and Perot and Higgins, who play on a line in college together, played on a line with the U.S. together. Higgins is kind of expected to be the first pick in the draft this coming season. And then on the back end, you had Zeke Bouillon from Denver. who won the national championship last year, and Lane Hudson's little brother, who we've already spoken about, Cole. He led the tournament points as a defenseman outright. Didn't tie outright, which is pretty
Unbelievable.
impressive.
As a defenseman,
As
yeah.
a defenseman, it's crazy impressive. And people are like, is he better than his brother? I don't know if I'll go that far off of one tournament, but he was terrific. So we'll see what he does. I'm a big Zeke Bouillon guy. I think he's going to be a very good player. I believe he is a Minnesota draft pick, but I'm not 100% on that. Yes, Minnesota. I think he's going to be very good. And his coach for the U.S. and for Denver, the University of Denver, is David Carl. So David Carl, in a 12-month span, so he won the World Juniors in January 2024, won the national championship with Denver in March 2024, came back as the U.S.'s coach, and won the gold medal again in January 2025. That's some winning.
That's a decent run.
That's a very good run.
That's some creds.
And that has started a lot of rumors with should he be going to the NHL?
There's some teams that could probably use a coaching.
I have heard in interviews, I believe after he won the national championship last year, is that he loves his situation in Denver. He's a young coach. He has a young family, so
A little bit of stability.
Some stability. When you go to the NHL, you know your job is not long term.
Yeah.
Head coaching jobs and pro sports, you aren't in it for job security.
Yeah.
I think teams could throw money at him, like the New York Rangers, maybe, that can afford it. Chuck some money at him. But from what I hear, he's comfortable where he is. He loves the program. He loves college hockey. And maybe it's my family's comfortable here. I have job security here.
There's nothing wrong with staying put and just continuing to love the game of hockey.
I believe that he'll stay. And then maybe down the road, if he still has this reputation in 10 years, maybe when his kids are older,
more independent.
Yeah, I think maybe it's okay, it's my dream to go to the NHL. I know one aspect was that he was a very good prospect himself, and he had a bad injury, and that kind of stopped him from getting to pro hockey. Possibly, we don't know for sure, but possibly.
Right.
So that could be an aspect of it's his dream to be in the NHL at some point. But he has expressed that he is comfortable where he is, and it could be more of a job security thing with a young family.
Yeah. Which makes sense.
He's going to be in Denver for a long time.
There's nothing wrong with that.
The only thing that's pulling him away from Denver is an NHL job.
Yeah. And a good one. And something that makes sense for his family.
Makes sense for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and that's pretty well known that he's the best coach outside the NHL in hockey right now.
Yeah.
So a young coach has lots of time left. So we'll be looking out for him. Anything else World Juniors related?
No.
By the way, I'm a big David Carl guy. I think he's an unbelievable coach. Okay. The last thing, it's been a long one, folks. The last thing, so we do have quarter century teams, but we are going to have tons more rolling out. So I think maybe we save that for next week.
Yeah, let's do more of a review because we've done so much this episode.
We've done a lot this episode. The last thing we want to touch on is over in Russia.
Oh, God.
Nikita Diniak was skating. I believe it was on the back check, and a cell phone fell out of his equipment.
This guy just can't get enough.
And then the ref picks the phone up, goes to the bench, say, "Whose is it?" And he kind of embarrassingly says, "It's me."
This guy's trying to secure his post-game meal.
His post-game.
He's Uber Eatsing, of course.
No, maybe not post-game meal. I think it might be a post-game something else.
Company?
Post-game company, yeah. Maybe he's looking in the crowd. She's close to within a kilometer.
Yeah, this guy's reducing his distance on Tinder to within a kilometer. Yeah. Yeah.
That was funny.
It was a funny clip.
Yeah, that was funny. You got anything else?
No. It's this has been a cool one.
Yeah. So obviously the World Juniors was a big topic. I think we're getting into football playoffs in both college and pro. So my hockey consumption has been a little bit less, but I'm still catching most Leafs games. I'm still catching a little bit. It's been a long one, but it's pretty much recovering 2 weeks
Yeah.
worth of stuff. Next week we'll be back to normal time, and we'll talk about the quarter century teams a little bit more. The Leafs got theirs, and then there was something else I just want to touch on, but that's not like a hurry or anything. It's not a current, just kind of an observation that I will bring up.
Well, then
Um, yeah,
go puck
go
yourself.
puck yourself.